The Kuro Games train is not stopping anytime soon right now. Man, oh man. First things first. Originally this was supposed to be a chapter 14 stream, but someone in the chat at a really late time, mind you, I was asleep at that time, reminded me of Echo Aria, which according to patch releases, the patch release order is a story that happens before Imprisoned Sight, which is chapter 14. Now, I went through Echo Aria a long while ago. I think it was around the time it actually first came out, but I don't remember too much of the story from it. So I'm okay, and I'm willing to reread it on stream for today. For Echo Aria. It's a long one though. It's gonna be a long read, as I double checked on it. It's like 20 nodes, and then there's the hidden story. So it's gonna be a lengthy read of it. It's gonna be lengthy. And from here on out, I will go in the order of like patch releases and stuff. So I got like a separate window open. I got the Gray Ravens website open, showing me the patch summary or patch roadmap. So it's Echo Aria and then Imprisoned Sight. Wait, actually. In fact, after Fake Ascension, it's supposed to be Untold Naraka. Wait a minute. Can we re-access that or no? I don't think so. I don't think we can get back into Untold Naraka. No, it doesn't look like it. That's hoax. It'd be cool to be able to reread Untold Naraka. Okay. No, wait. I swear I saw it here once, though. Wait. I could have sworn I saw I saw the near stuff somewhere around here. I swear to God I did. Or am I tripping? I think I'm just crazy. Yeah, I think I'm just crazy. I swear to God, I feel like I saw it here on the menu before, though. Okay. Fortunately, we won't be able to go through that story. Okay. So, today will be Echo Aria. It's gonna be a while. Oh, that also I just remembered that I am starting the stream 1 hour earlier than usual. Because I have a feeling it's going to be a long one. So. And I'm going to be speaking in a more softer tone of my voice. I'm going to start speaking more softly. Just so I can take it easy with my throat when I'm reading this stuff. There we go. I forgot the switch screens. Jeez. But yeah, let's see here. Event record. Or no, story. So it's Echo Aria. See, ordered 100%. But again, I'm okay with going through it one more time. Since I don't remember stuff. I just remember fighting the Siren boss, this freaking dude in the background. And I remember playing as Wanshi during this one. And then there's the hidden story, right? Which this one I don't remember. I'm not sure about including interludes this stream. Just like Echo Aria, I've done the interludes as well. I'm not sure about doing the interludes for this stream. Maybe next time, if there is enough time, maybe I'll include one of them. But I don't think so. Since the plan is for both normal and hidden. Or I could just follow what shows at the bottom of the screen here, where I go through normal first, and then the interludes, and then hidden mode. Or I could do it in this way, where I go through this first part, which is Selena's story, and then her interlude, and then Wanshi's story here, and then his interlude. The possibilities are endless. Oh yeah. Something tells me it might be like 2 Echo Aria related streams. And then afterwards we'll be back to the main story, which is Imprisoned Site. And then another, and then the next extra story, which is the one featuring 21. Which one, that one I've also went through before. Same thing with Last Spark. Evernight Beat I didn't go through. Lusum I didn't go through. Recitativo, what was that? Recitativo di Fantasia. I didn't go through that. Referees with a Whale. I did that one really early. The Last Bow, Arc Beyond, New Divides, Intermergence, Across the Ruined Sea. That one I did. The one featuring Abyss, Bianca. Left Unsaid, Bambinata, Spiral of Chronos is Hyperreal Lee, Renaissance de Fantastique, it's Isla, Witchery Shackles, Floating Reveries, Han Ying, Chaos Unsnarled, that's Feral 21, Sands of Wrath, that's Noctis, and then Everglowing Justice. I did go through that, but I also don't remember much of the story in that one, to be honest. And then Cradle Parade, I went through that. Not a, I again don't remember much, even though that one was the most recent main story. And of course, right now, Blazing Simulacrum. All right. Enough of me just constantly yapping. Enough of me stalling here. We gotta get into this. Let me see here. Okay. Time to reread this stuff. Whew. Take a drink of water just to prepare myself. I think I might do it where it's extra story or Selena's story and then interlude and then Wansha and then Wansha interlude and then I might just do it that way. It's gonna be a long one, so sit tight. So, extra 4-1, Operation Red Tide. They are heading toward the shoreline. What coincidence. Is it the Black Shores they're heading to? 5:30 a.m. Universal Time. On a transport craft in low Earth orbit. The engine emits a low and steady hum. After some time, the crew's ears become accustomed to the sound. Rather than finding it disruptive, the uniform rhythm is like white noise lulling the crew with the desire to sleep. The seatbelts secure them to their seats, comforting them despite the weightlessness. Yet their need and longing for gravity are instinctive, carved in their genes. There is a sense of emptiness and loss in the vacuum of space. This loss only amplifies the sense of drowsiness. In order to suppress the impulse to close your eyes and take a nap, you slowly shift your gaze to the porthole. You see the quiet universe dotted with stars. The transport craft should be traveling at inconceivable speed, but in the vastness of space, the stars, millions of light years away, fail to serve as a reference point for you moving forward, regardless of how fast the ship is. If it were not for the hum of the engine in your ears, there would be no sensation of the ship moving. The sense of emptiness continues to escalate. Just as your consciousness is about to succumb, numbness makes its way up your spine. Everything you see appears to stop as if someone pressed the pause button. Fragments of memory begin to rush before your eyes in a kaleidoscope of colors. You were infiltrated by Huashu in City 75. Your mind beacon was forced into a corrupted mind. Initiating a mind connection with a corrupted is unprecedented. After a thorough examination, we've found that your mind beacon has become corrupted. And up until this point, you haven't been able to recover from the corruption. I'm sure you've also noticed that your mind has fallen into a constant state of intermittent memory replays. Memory replays isn't exactly the most appropriate term for your symptoms, but it'll do for the time being. In other words, you will randomly fall into a chaotic storm of memory flashbacks without warning. Some of your repressed or supposedly forgotten thoughts, numerous fragments of memory, will bombard your consciousness. There's nothing wrong with your physical body other than the mind beacon pollution, at least for now. The Science Council also wants to put you under constant observation to see whether any other physiological functions will be affected by your corrupted mind beacon. But that's for later. I think you'll have more difficult challenges to tackle in the interim. Your vision fragments again. What happened in the underground cavern is enough for you to be court-martialed. You're still sitting here only because you were responsible for defeating the polyphage. Locking up the heroes responsible for defeating the polyphage would only cause an uproar among the people, so the decision was made to allow you to continue field operations. However, don't think your merits have offset the severity of this issue. The authorities won't simply let bygones be bygones. As long as the distrust remains, countless pairs of eyes will be watching your every move. If you do anything out of the ordinary during this time, even the president can't protect you. Nicola has always been blunt. Pay it no mind. You know what he meant? It was more of a reminder than a warning. I know. Why are you telling me this? Because I have a suspicion that this isn't over. I need people I can trust and deploy when the time comes. That includes the Grey Ravens. I don't have time to have my people tangled up in bureaucracy. And neither do you. At the very least, soldiers should die on the battlefield, on the gallows of those they serve. The most important thing for Eden now is to solve problems and defeat the enemy, not go on a witch hunt against one of our own. As long as you can prove your loyalty and your worth to Eden in the next battle, that supervision will naturally lift. But right now, I've heard from Asimov about your problems. Do you want to stay in the ICU or continue duty on the front line? And of course, the golden arc of light suddenly shatters your recollection. Your consciousness returns in an instant. You do not have the time to think about how long you were out, seeing that the arc slicing through your memory was not an illusion. It is real. Outside the porthole, the unchanging scenery suddenly shifts with the appearance of the arc. Like a scimitar fresh out of the forge, a gentle and curved horizon forms in the afterglow of the golden light amid the sea of stars. Hidden up until this moment, Earth finally reveals its true face. Soon the faint golden light turns blinding white. As the transport craft continues to coast along in orbit, the sun slowly rises from the distant shadow, illuminating the surface of the blue planet in its entirety. Without the atmosphere to scatter the light, the dazzling rays of sunlight are sharp and absent of their usual tenderness. Just staring at it momentarily fills your brain with an unspeakable sense of vertigo. Come. And don't. Someone seems to be calling out to you by your ear. Commandant! Right as your thoughts are about to drift away again, the stern voice brings you back to reality. You suddenly turn your head to see Liv and Lucia standing before you with looks of worry. Lee furrows his eyebrows faintly. Huh? Lee lets out a sigh of relief. His frowned brows seem to relax as well. Don't look directly at the sun without the proper equipment. Even though the porthole is equipped with a filter, the UV light is still enough to burn your retinas. I'm fine. I was just lost in thought. Lucia looks out of the porthole to where you were looking. She seems to want to say something, but before she can speak, she is interrupted by another harsh voice. Is now the time for slacking and idle chit-chat, Grey Raven Commandant? Following this, a hologram projection appears before you. Fluorescent lights form the outline of an elderly man in the air. He is wearing the same standard-issued Commandant uniform. Every meticulous pleat is as stern and upright as his expression. The man's eyes are slightly cloudy with age, but his posture remains upright, like that of an unyielding pine. With eyes like an old falcon, he scans all the soldiers aboard the transport craft. Although you are not communicating face to face, and there is no literal eye contact, all soldiers present subconsciously straighten their posture as they meet his gaze. This is Hans speaking. I will be the chief commander for this ground mission. Asimov, the Science Council's chief technician, has already explained the specific matters of this mission to you. I won't go over them, as I'm sure most of you have already committed the details of this mission to memory. However, given the lack of discipline among the constructed squads I just witnessed, let me reiterate these orders to prevent further negligence. Upon saying this, Hans's gaze seems to sweep past you. Meet his gaze. Let's begin the mission briefing. Following Hans' words, your mind returns to before your departure. 24 hours ago. Babylonia War Room. Several commandants gather before the war table. The battle against the Ascendants has come to an end. Your heroic deeds on the surface were astonishing. Unfortunately, the Parliament is unable to give you the medals and honors you deserve at the moment. After receiving this urgent assembly order, you've probably realized new troubles have arisen and are imminent. Celica, project the information. Yes, President. Celica quickly operates the terminal, and the holographic projection reveals a series of remote sensing images. Immediately, the dark blue screen is covered with a red swath of red. Sanguine crystals clusters bloom on the surface in the shape of arteries, forming a cobweb of rivers entrenched in the surface. Some of the images are very blurry, either due to issues with the transmissions or perhaps the photographers were facing external threats and unable to record everything. Someone gasps. Shortly after, the entire conference room falls deathly quiet. You could hear a pin drop. Sen clears his throat, breaking the solemn silence. Asimov, since you were the first person to organize the data on the current situation, I think it's only appropriate you take it from here. Asimov nods and approaches the war table. By the look of his haggard expression, pale lips, and faint dark circles under his eyes, he appears to have had several sleepless nights the past few days. However, right as he opens his mouth to speak, his usual professionalism as the Science Council's chief technical officer returns. Some of the teams that weren't dispatched during the last large-scale ground operation may be unaware of this, so I'll explain it briefly. As you can see, during our last ground operation, we uncovered dark red tides containing new... He pauses for a moment as if struggling to come up with the proper wording. New forms of the punishing virus. Based on their physical properties, the Science Council has decided on the name Red Tide for the time being. However, this is definitely not a natural phenomenon caused by the explosion and proliferation of red algae in the conventional ecological sense. This entity has nothing to do with water. After conducting an analysis of samples, the red liquid you see is the punishing virus itself. One of our construct teams engaged in a direct confrontation with the Ascendants during a previous operation. Nicholas suddenly steps forward and interrupts Asimov. Get to the point, Asimov. Nicola, let Asimov present whatever information he feels is pertinent to the mission. Asimov furrows his eyebrows, seemingly slightly displeased, and continues speaking. I won't repeat the specific details of the operation, only the results. The commandants present who have participated in previous operations have most likely encountered new forms of corrupted. These enemies are unlike conventional corrupted. Instead, they are a form of pure punishing virus, possessing apparent biological features. More specifically, they represent an evolution of the punishing virus, punishing hetero creatures. The specific mechanism and reason are unknown. We don't know why the punishing virus is capable of self-evolution. The only thing we can say for certain is that they are created by the punishing virus within the red tide. The red tide will devour machinery and organisms and decompose them into nourishment for breeding hetero creatures. Originally, after repelling the ascendants, the proliferation of the red tide began to diminish. However, we received a transmission from the recon team 24 hours ago. The red tide has resurfaced. The proliferation is different from last time, so we didn't realize the severity until it was already too late. The red tide is like a relentless cancer, going into remission only to recur anew. The red tide initially lurked in an underground cavern that was designed as nuclear fallout shelter by City 75. It circulated through the city's underground waterways before reaching critical mass and emerging onto the surface. We dispatched our recon team to the city ruins to ensure that it was under our supervision. However, the characteristics of the red tide seem to fluctuate without rhyme or reason. In this regard, it's not a tide in the traditional sense, but more of a fluid organism that can act autonomously. Plus, the underground cavern was built in secret, so many places are in our blind spots. Some underground waterways connect to the nearby rivers through an intricate network of pipelines. Even if the rivers have dried up, the river beds and ravines are still there. A portion of the red tide was able to slip out of the city undetected through these blind spots. Moreover, as you just saw on the screen, the red tide has formed tributaries along the surface of the wasteland. After receiving this information from our scouts on the surface, the Science Council has conducted emergency tests on this form of the red tide. Fortunately, this red tide isn't as rampant as the first time, nor has it expanded to the point of becoming an unstoppable deluge. Unfortunately, its distribution is still far too prolific. The red tide has formed a real river, dispersing into countless smaller tributaries. After calculating the course of these tributaries, we found one thing. They are headed toward. Asimov's finger swipes the screen, displaying a wider version of the map. His fingertip points to a large blue sector. The ocean. It's heading toward the shoreline. If we allow the red tide to reach the shoreline, there's no turning back. Unlike the ocean, land serves as an inorganic buffer zone that can block the red tide. There is no better medium for the wanton proliferation and spread of red tide than water. The whole sea will become corrupted, devoured, and assimilated by the red tide. By that time, the punishing virus will spread to every corner of the world. In order to curb the spread of the red tide, Babylonia has formulated a plan to bombard the red tide with a Longinus arsenal, referencing the plan made during the battle at the space station. The first step of this plan is to obtain the exact coordinates and location of the red tide. During the Golden Age, you only needed to send a request to SatNav system to obtain the specific coordinates for an area. But now, these satellites have become corrupted by the punishing virus, so we can no longer rely on them. As Sen approaches the war table, next I will brief everyone on the mission. As you wish, Mr. President. Asimov nods and takes a step back. Selga presses a button. The movable panel in the center of the war table separates into two sections with a crisp pop as a small platform rises up from within. To everyone's surprise, a long black hexagonal needle, nearly 1.5 meters in length, appears. This device was promptly developed by the Science Council. It's called a bit domain node. It will be distributed to all team captains present at the beginning of the operation. Your task is to locate the edge of the red tide, insert the bit domain node, activate it, then protect it until you receive the evacuation order from Babylonia. Your total coverage must include all of the red tide tributaries. We need to remove it all at once to ensure that no residual tide is left this time. If you are attacked by hetero creatures during this period, hold your position to ensure the integrity and security of the bit domain node. In order to ensure that this operation goes according to plan, we will saturate our deployments, positionings, and attacks. 8 teams will be deployed to execute this calibration mission. Each team is composed of an elite task force, led by a commandant and several construct squads. The elite task force led by the commandant will be responsible for deploying the node, while the construct teams will be responsible for protecting them in the interim. Hopefully, all 8-bit domain nodes will be deployed. That's the only ideal situation. However, Babylonia needs at least 3-bit domain nodes to be successfully deployed in order to obtain accurate enough coordinates. If you have any questions, please raise them now, and Asimov will explain the details to you. What is a bit domain node? You know what? Sure. Where to start? It's not overly technical. It's a rush job used to temporarily replace satellites. The SatNav system continuously broadcasts its current coordinates in time. However, thanks to the punishing virus, there are no navigation satellites available in low Earth orbit, so we have to use bit domain nodes instead. When they're deployed on the surface, they will measure the distance and angle between the other nodes, then continuously broadcast a signal to space. After receiving the signal, Babylonia will calculate the specific coordinates of each node, then delineate the attack range for the Longinus arsenal. Babylonia will inform you after you successfully receiving the signal and calculating the coordinates. Until then, you can't retreat. It should be noted that the current orbital altitude of Babylonia allows us to orbit Earth in about 2 hours. The signal from the nodes will only be received when passing through the airspace within the range of the nodes. This is also why you need to defend the nodes upon activation. Are there any other questions? Alright, there's just one more thing I'd like to add. Unlike when the red tide was found in City 75, the consistency is more like running water than thick mud this time. We aren't sure why. Regardless, all you need to know is that the concentration and validity of the red tide are significantly less than what it was before. Only when the tide rises will the punishing virus concentration reach the equivalent found in dead zones. According to monitoring reports, low tide concentration is within the range of normal punishing zones. This is one of the reasons why the recon team failed to notice that the red tide had moved. Thankfully, however, this means that the protective devices enhanced by the Science Council on such short notice are sufficient for working in proximity to the red tide for the duration of the mission. However, it's for only a short duration. Avoid close contact with the red tide after landing, especially during high tide. And that should suffice. Seems like everyone fully understands the mission and the gravity of our dilemma. This presents an important opportunity for Babylonia to launch an attack. However, we need to change orbit and reduce altitude to commence the attack, which puts us at risk of intersecting the network of corrupted satellites. As such, our anti-air defenses won't allow us to remain in position for very long. Similarly, your mission is not to annihilate hetero creatures, but to deploy the bit domain nodes. The nodes aren't particularly difficult to deploy, but in a strategic sense, this mission is crucial. It requires a high degree of collaboration and team awareness from all of you. Avoid head-on confrontations and needless acts of heroism that do not otherwise serve the success of the mission. Our top priority is to protect the nodes until Babylonia receives the coordinate data. I know that the commandants of the task forces present are among the most elite. I do not question your ability. However, this operation needs neither personal heroism or compatibility. What matters most are judgment and decision-making for the overall benefit of the mission. Most of you are used to fighting solely with your own team, so for this operation only, I have specifically arranged Hans to act as the chief commander for the calibration operation at ground level. The sentence slightly turns to one side. The silver-haired man standing behind Hassan in stern silence since the beginning steps forward and salutes. Yes, Mr. President. Some of the team captains present show faint expressions of confusion on how an elderly man, seemingly a few years older than even Hassan, is serving as the chief commander for such an important mission. For safety reasons, only the commandant of each task force has the authority to deploy their bit domain node. Please make accurate judgments and verify with Chief Commander Hans before activating your bit domain node to ensure that Babylonia receives the most accurate coordinates. The rise and fall of the red tide will greatly affect the real-time topographic changes within the combat zone. There may have already been significant changes within the duration of this meeting. In case of emergency, please follow Chief Commander Han's orders. This concludes our mission briefing. As previously stated, give priority to my command. Don't question my judgment. Obeying orders is the first requirement of a soldier. I hope the forces of Babylonia nowadays won't let me down. With that, his hologram disappears from the transport craft. Right as the fluorescent light dissipates, everyone cannot help but breathe a collective sigh of relief. Whispers from other construct teams can be heard nearby. Have you met Chief Commander Hans? No, but he looks older than the president. Isn't he a bit old for going out on the front line? Who knows? Don't write off Chief Commander Hans so easily. There must be a reason why the president arranged for this. Commander Chief Hans was born in the Golden Age. He experienced the post-pandemic age and the Acadia evacuation firsthand. After that, he continued to work in the Center for Combat Intelligence as one of its core members. I didn't expect that this operation would need someone of his caliber to join us. I'm sure he's seen his fair share of warfare and bloodshed, just like the president. He's bound to be strict on others. Don't take to heart what just happened. Worried about me, Lee? I just don't want my commandant to worry about such trivial matters. His personal information is not confidential and can be accessed directly in the archives. There's nothing worth talking about in private. You smile and nod at Lee. You glance to the side at Lucia, who is staring out of the porthole. Lucia? Apologies, Commandant. What are you looking at? I'm just looking at the same thing you are, Commandant. Sunrise. Yes. You weren't just lost in thought, were you? What were you thinking about, Commandant? Sunrise at low Earth orbit looks completely different than it does on the surface. Is that what you were thinking? Lucia lets out a barely visible smile. Finally beginning to understand what you're thinking, Commandant. It's so bright. It's even overloading my visual components. In low Earth orbit, Babylonia completes one revolution around the Earth in approximately 2 hours. Such a sunrise occurs more than 12 times a day. All residents of Eden, born in space, have long been accustomed to such a spectacle. The rising and setting of the sun no longer serve as symbols of hope. Day and night are no longer measured in 24-hour cycles. People must rely on other ways to define their day. Much longer. How much longer until landfall? 300 kilometers is not that far. Looking down from this height, the entirety of the blue planet is no longer in view. Only the changing surface. The red-tinted earth, the blue ocean. Rolling storm clouds along the tropics dancing in the stratosphere, quietly shrouding the earth. For some peculiar reason, as the distance gets closer and closer, the haunting sense of emptiness gradually disappears. This is not going to, but returning to Earth. Upon arrival, everything will once again carry its intended meaning. It is the cradle of all life, and the home for which all life will return. Attention passengers. The aircraft will begin to decelerate and reduce orbital altitude. Reverse thrusters will ignite in 15 seconds. Rapid deceleration will generate 2 Gs of force. Please fasten your seatbelts. Broadcast on the intercom suddenly halts all extraneous thoughts. Sit upright and firmly grip the handrails. A sudden force pushes the crew firmly against the spongy padding of the seats. The overwhelming pressure strains their eyes, hearts, and bodies. But this oppressive force and restraint completely dispelled all previous unprovoked confusion. That was a long read. It was like half an hour. Moonhawk. We'll just stick with those. On the desert wasteland, jagged rock formations jut out of the ground, through which the red tide flows. Wanshi squats on a towering rock formation. The red tide quietly trickles below. Although the tide here occasionally swells, it's not an unstoppable force like previous accounts in the city ruins. Occasionally, he sees strange debris, rusty metal, shredded rubber, and even pale animal bones floating in the red ichor. There doesn't seem to be any fear in Wanshi. He just lets out a big yawn instead. How much longer do I gotta wait? On the rugged surface of the rock, there's not a flat enough space to place the tripod for his sniper rifle. Well, the latest info should have been updated to Babylonia. What's taking them so long? I don't know what's going on with the captain either. I'm always left to do all the recon work here. Now I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. If they don't dispatch any reinforcements, this place is gonna... The red tide tributary had only just reached this place 24 hours ago. But now, aside from only the tallest of rocks, the entire area has been completely flooded. Fortunately, the red tide is only quietly flowing and not surging out of control. The rock on which he stands still towers high above. The inverter device and protective equipment strengthened by the support force on such short notice enable him to make observations from a relatively safe distance without fear of corruption. However, this cannot continue much longer. It was only a sparse red tide tributary not long ago. Now it has completely inundated the area. Even if he proceeds with caution, he's better off leaving this area sooner rather than later. Not only is the punishing virus concentration rising, the red tide also brings life to the punishing virus. The red tide surging below the rock is a breeding ground for hetero creatures. Large red crystal clusters, like reeds and shrubs, surround the trickling tide. Red creatures of various shapes and sizes pass between them. These creatures are neither corrupted machines nor constructs. These hetero creatures, glowing with a red aura, are merely vestiges of life on Earth that had been devoured by the red tide. On the riverbank, Wanshi catches a glimpse of a motionless stone suddenly crack as 4 limbs protrude from within. Wanshi's bionic skin quickly calculates the current wind speed. 1.6 meters per second. Wind blowing from 4 o'clock. My sniper scope should move a notch right to compensate for the wind. Slightly leaning to the side, the crosshairs in the narrow scope moves 1 mil to the right. Ready, aim, fire. Bullseye. The bullet releases from the chamber, landing a direct hit on the hetero creature. The hetero creature collapses onto the ground, writhes in pain, then becomes limp and lifeless. Soon after, the overflowing red tide reclaims it into nutrients for the hetero creatures to spawn from within. Ugh. There's no end to them. Setting down his sniper rifle, Wanshi takes out his rangefinder, binoculars, and looks in the direction of the extending tributary. This rock is about 20 meters in height. Without obstacles and regardless of meteorological conditions, the maximum distance that can be visually measured should be... Wanshi closes his eyes for a brief second before arriving at a conclusion. 17 kilometers. However, the rangefinder can no longer see the end of the tributary. In other words, the red tide tributary currently flowing below is extending at a speed of more than 17 kilometers a day. Looks like this is no laughing matter. He puts away the rangefinder, then stands up. Suddenly, the deafening roar of motors rumbles in the sky above. Wanshi quickly looks up, his drowsy eyes suddenly wide open. Huh. I don't believe it. Shooting stars aren't visible during the day, but in Washa's golden eyes, he sees the vivid reflection of a metallic meteor, followed by a long trail of black smoke as it descends to Earth. Attention passengers. The aircraft will begin to decelerate and reduce orbital altitude. Reverse thrusters will ignite in 15 seconds. Rapid deceleration will generate 2 Gs of force. Please fasten your seatbelts. Attention passengers. The aircraft is approaching the ionosphere. Enter a communication blackout for 67 seconds. All departments have switched to onboard wired communication. Attention passengers. The aircraft is approaching the mesosphere. Preparing to shut down the aerospace engine and switch to aircraft engine. Please fasten your seatbelts and brace for turbulence. Attention passengers. The aircraft has entered the inner atmosphere, initiating aviation procedure. Attention passengers. The aircraft has entered the stratosphere. Attention passengers. The aircraft has entered the troposphere. Attention passengers. Due to impaired visibility from the current sandstorm, the system is unable to confirm the location of the red tide. The system can't detect the red tide. Then we must proceed according to the original plan. Our mission starts now. Disperse and proceed with your duties. I wish you all the best in completing the mission. That was fast. I'll take a drink of water. The sudden tremor of the aircraft's hull made every passenger's heart skip a beat. The violent shaking catches you off guard, causing your head to bang against the hull of the aircraft. Normally, you would be able to stabilize yourself. However, your consciousness becomes shrouded in darkness before you are able to adjust your posture in time. During a memory playback, you will be completely pulled into a memory spiral. This overload of information will make you unable to control your body and perceive what is happening around you. Fortunately, the playbacks dissipate as fast as they manifest. You may recount a certain duration of the time subjectively, but only a few seconds may pass in real time. Hey, Anna. Welcome in. By the way, during this period, your subconscious will become hyperactive. You may be overcome with perplexing ideas and make bewildering decisions. It's because your brain processes a lot of information internally, but your subjective thinking can't keep up with this processing speed. I can't say for sure whether this will have a positive or negative impact. However, it's worth noting that the situation on the battlefield can change at a moment's notice. Since your memory playbacks are unpredictable and beyond your control, they may prove fatal in battle. To be on the safe side, I advise against participating in battles that require direct confrontation with the enemy for the time being. Just as you pull yourself out of a memory playback, the metal hull rapidly approaches. You struggle to avoid the collision, but you cannot even lift a finger. You can only succumb to the whim of your memories. It's been quite some time, Grey Raven Commandant. Surprised to see me, I take it. To be honest, it took quite some effort to reach you. If Chairman Allen hadn't lobbied for me, I don't think this would be possible. Miss Isla? Isla! The task forces have all heard about the heroic deeds of the Grey Ravens at the Ascendant's base. I've even heard about them in Babylonia. If you've been in direct contact with the Ascendants, have you seen the Ascendant who attacked me on the space station? Never mind, he's not important. The only thing I care about is whether you find any sign of her in their base. Who do you mean by her? Just as the pink-haired girl is about to say a name. Your memory stops and then cuts to black, as if it had been tampered with. Severe pain fills your head, and your thoughts stagnate for a moment. Commandant! Sorry, I was lost in thought. It's turbulence. Stay put. Attention passengers. The aircraft is experiencing turbulence. Attempting to stabilize altitude. Please stay seated so as not to change the aircraft's center of gravity. Thunderstorms rumble outside of the transport craft. Electric arcs flash among the clouds, shaking everyone with an even more violent tremor. Experiencing excessive turbulence. Attempting to disengage by expediting the descent sequence. Please do not panic. No, in a situation like this, that The turbulence continues to escalate. Due to the emergency maneuver, the aircraft has deviated from the original target. The aircraft is still experiencing turbulence. Turbulence has deformed the port side wing due to excessive load bearing. Aerodynamics compromised, initiating emergency landing procedure. The sharp crunch of the port side wing proves to be the final blow to the transport craft as half of the deformed wing plummets to the ground. The aircraft cannot return to a stable altitude for landing, estimating ground impact of approximately 15 degrees. At this angle, the aircraft is at risk of crash landing. Initiating parachute evacuation procedure. Depressurizing cabin. Opening tailgate in 15 seconds. Tailgate open. All personnel, please parachute out immediately. Why do things always go wrong, man? The initial impact against the hull nearly knocks you unconscious, and you struggle to move. Descending into a tailspin, the blood on your forehead blurs your vision. The seatbelt is now proving to be a death sentence. Perhaps due to the impact, repeated attempts to release the seatbelt are all in vain. Asimov was right. During a memory playback, you are but a lamb to the slaughter. In the dim haze of light, you catch a glimpse of construct teams evacuating the aircraft one after another. Hurry up and prepare for evacuation. Right as you stand up, the cabin shakes violently again. I've secured a bit domain node. When will we parachute out? Too late. The transport craft has stalled. It's too dangerous to parachute now. Brace for impact, Lucia. Help the Commandant. Got it. Right as you're about to crash into the metal hull again, someone shields your head and pulls you into their embrace. The embrace is cold and familiar. Lucia. I've got you, Commandant. Don't worry. I'll protect you. Close eyes. Sometime later. Maybe it was just a few seconds. Maybe it was quite some time. When all the dust settled, the forced landing was closer to a crash landing. You hear the sound of a laser cutting metal by your ears. You opened your eyes slightly to see Lee cutting away the hull. Lee, Liv, Lucia. Don't move, Commandant. In a rare tone of sternness, Liv stops you as you prepare to move. Lee kicks open the crumbling metal hull that had been cut. At that moment, light for the sky pours into the cabin. Hurry, Lucia. Get the Commandant out. Lucia removes you from the transport craft. Looking around, you find the three constructs unfazed. Your wounded forehead is the only sign of damage. Lucia, set the Commandant down. I'll apply emergency aid. Alright. Having experience as a former medic, Liv quickly stems the bleeding and bandages your wounds. Fortunately, it's just a flesh wound. It just looks more serious than what it actually is. Eyebrows furrowed, Lucia lets out a sigh of relief off to the side, then draws her weapon and looks around vigilantly. Now is not the time to let our guard down. Watch your surroundings. Surrounded by barren wasteland, the crash site must be far off the beaten path leading to the original destination. If it is just an ordinary wasteland, it would not have mattered. More importantly, however, was where the crew had crash landed. What's that? To everyone's surprise, the crash site is not just some remote location. Rather, it is amidst the tributaries of the Red Tide. More aptly put, they are at the bar to the tributaries. Though they are not inundated by the Red Tide, they are by no means out of harm's way. Sand billowing in the wind impairs visibility, making movement in any direction nigh impossible. What's that sound? The sound is rich and melodious, like the call of a large mammal. As the sound becomes louder and louder, a rustling approaches from the depths of the sandstorm. In a flash, the three gray ravens stand in front to protect you. Who could it be? What could it be? The storm's too heavy. I can't see where we're going. We've received Khan's request of an unknown signal. It is identified as a Babylonian construct. Put it through, Lee. Grey Raven? And you are? Wanshi of Strikehawk. I've been scouting this area. You are at the heart of the red tide. You must leave immediately. I left a beacon in the area nearby. Move towards direction. Tap the button. Why are there human clothes? It's too wide open here. People can easily lose the sense of direction. They probably thought they could cross the desert. Wait a sec. There's something in the jacket. It's a piece of paper? What's on it? The remaining food and serum can't last us through this winter. We must move. We need to find enough food so Ray and others can. It looks like a torn diary. I can see the date at the bottom. There's only this page left. The edge of this paper looks like it's been burned. The temperature difference between morning and night can be huge in this environment. If they had to burn the diary to keep themselves warm, they probably are already. Let's keep moving. Whoops, wrong button. Oh, I saw that. What exactly are you doing? Still have no idea where to go? Fine, follow my instructions from now on. When can we arrive at our destination? We have finished all of our food. I don't know how long we can last. Oh, left control cues. Watch out, hero creature nearby. Oh shit. Sea squirt. Let's keep moving. The beacon isn't far away. Oh, I found it. We should be safe here, right? Oh, there was 2 other secrets I didn't discover. Despite the dense layer of clouds overhead blotting out the sun, the Earth's surface is still scorching hot. The sand carried in the scorching wind stings your face. There it is again. The sound echoes through the air. The red tide, which was flowing quietly, begins to fill the riverbed once more. Although the sound seems distant, it still seems to resonate from every direction. Liv, inject the Commandant with a serum. The red tide is beginning to rise again. Punishing concentration is rising at an unprecedented rate. That was the last one. Most of the serum was smashed into landing. The bit domain nodes, support frame, and even the comms device for contacting the main force were all damaged. How long can we hold out? Less than 2 hours. Holding the broken bit node, Liv shows a look of guilt. Sorry, Commandant. I couldn't keep it safe. This all happened so quickly. It's not your fault. The Commandant is right. We couldn't have anticipated that. The team falls silent. Can we really trust a construct that claims to be a part of Strikehawk? If he's one of Chrome's comrades. Right at that moment, a hero creature appears out of nowhere and ambushes the team. Commandant! Right before the hero creature is about to stab you with a sharp spike, a bullet pierces the air and penetrates the creature. Still in shock, you cannot help but look in the direction of the shot's trajectory. A white figure looms in the yellow sandstorm. Just a reminder, your comms have been on this whole time. I heard everything you said. Just now. That was me. His languid voice suddenly becomes serious. Quit looking around and get over here. Wanshi to the rescue. After quite some time, the 4 of you finally catch up to the white figure. Before you stands a young man with delicate silver hair. and thick dark circles under his eyes. Wanshi, correct? Thank you for... thank me when we get out of this place. Come with me. Half-hearted and meaningless greetings are skipped over before they even begin. What's going on here? You first. We ran into turbulence. Both sides are concise in their exchange. Lee's not wanting to mince words. Wanshi is too lazy to waste words. Wanshi glances upward. I figured. Otherwise the landing was a bit... His face turns blank. If it was yesterday, landing here wouldn't have been such an issue. Unfortunately, you're a day late. You mean... Wanshi's troubled eyes widen as he retrains his apathetic tone, then responds seriously. The red tide hadn't reached this place until today. You'd better see it for yourself rather than me simply tell you. Let me start over. I'm Wanshi from Strike Hawk of the Task Force. Chrome is my captain. I'm sure you've met. Since the last battle, Strike Hawk has been investigating what's left of the red tide and searching for the location of Huashu in City 75. After hearing about the victory against the polyphage, we stayed on the surface to continue monitoring the red tide. I was ordered by a captain to investigate the city's periphery. I was also the first person to inform Babylonia on the red tide's activity. Since Babylonia dispatched you here, I'll spare the details. I know who you are. You're a Raven, correct? Our captain mentioned you. Especially you, Uzbeni. Wanshi's seriousness was only momentarily. Shortly after, he returns to his usual lazy self. But, it looks like his description was exactly... Ugh. His narrow pair of golden eyes glance at you faintly. He cuts himself off halfway with a long yawn. What's that sound earlier? Oh, that. It always lasts anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds. That long? Yeah. Human ears can hear a part of it. The frequency is between 10 and 40 hertz. But you can probably only hear it at above 20 hertz. Whenever the sound starts, the red tide begins to spread. What on earth? Sounds like a whale song. A whale song. Interesting analogy. Human ears can only hear above 20 hertz, whereas the vocalization of a blue whale is typically between 10 and 40 hertz. Humans refer to this as a whale song. But this isn't the ocean. This is a desert. How can there be the sound of whales? Not to mention that the life-devouring red tide rises whenever it appears. But, if it's a death knell, then it's far too serene. Oh. Drink. Another drink. Okay. Whew. Man, the reading is long, it's lengthy. It's gonna be really lengthy. I feel like by the time I get to the end of this portion of Echo Aria, my voice is gonna be dead as hell. So Echo Aria might actually be split up into like 2, 3, maybe even 2 or 3 parts here, honestly. Where I would do this first section of Echo Aria, this first half, and then do Selena's interlude, Selena Tempest. And then the next half would be Wanshi, and then his interlude. Or like, for like another stream. That's what I'm thinking. We'll have to see though. I don't know where I'm gonna fit the hidden story. But man. 2 nodes, it's been about like an hour. Land for no man. One must face his weakness, his own weakness, to embrace the future. Whew. You will walk with Wanshi for what feels like ages. With drinking water exhausted, and your legs equally so, you never knew hiking could be so difficult. The desert is not a place for talking. With sand assaulting your every orifice, opening your mouth is just an invitation for a mouthful of sand. Not only for humans, the yellow sand also causes great trouble for the mechanical joints of constructs. After we cross this section of land, let's repair our frames. Sand is clawing out the joints. Commandant, your complexion. Wanshi throws a tarp over to you. Thank you. Wanshi just looks away and yawns, showing no sign of responding. Silence returns, and the party continues onward. The farther you walk, the rock formations continue to lessen along with the density of the tributary. However, the oppressive sense of urgency still remains. If it is from the red tide before, it is now from surviving in such hostile conditions. From behind, you hear the whale song again. You are no longer in the area inundated by the red tide, and the sound takes on a more ethereal tone. Your eyesight once again begins to fragment. Let me tell you something about her while there's still time. We have been close friends since we became constructs. Before we became constructs. She may be a starry-eyed idealist, but she's also the most pragmatic person I have ever met. When she acts mature, she's decisive to an extreme. When she acts naive, she's romantic to a fault. For example, Isla turns and glances out the window at the blue planet. What do you think of that blue planet? Earth? Yeah. Suddenly, your mind is filled with official data. The equatorial radius is 6,378.137 kilometers. It rotates from west to east and revolves around the sun. It is the third innermost planet of the solar system. It goes without saying that the feeling of gravity upon entering the atmosphere is always a memorable part of each mission. Explain your thoughts to Isla. Is that all? The task force commandants often get deployed to the surface. I don't think most residents born in Babylonia will ever know what true gravity feels like. Some members of the archaeological team haven't even been to the surface. Anyway, what's it like to be on the surface? What it's like on the surface? You close your eyes. Isla's face begins to contort. Why am I thinking about speaking with Isla before departure at a time like this? What's it like on the surface? What's it like on the surface? Coverhead. Ugh. What's up? You remain quiet. Having left the sandstorm, the whale song accompanying you like a shadow gradually fades into the distance. You can't help but turn to look back. Amid the dense sand, you seem to spot the faint figure of a woman. Is that a shadow from the red tide? Your question remains unanswered as it vanishes in the blink of an eye. I'm fine. Okay, let's keep moving. After another long trek, suddenly Wanshi stops at the front. He squints and looks ahead. There's a kid at 2 o'clock. 200 meters. What's someone doing in a place like this? An enemy? This is best left for you to decide, Usabeni. You're the Grey Raven Commandant. Only you have the authority to assess our course of action. You're just shifting the blame. Oh, of course not. Just an observer. Besides, you trust your Commandant's judgment more than I do, don't you? Following that, he closes his eyes and stops talking as he quietly waits for the others to make a decision. Look toward 2 o'clock. Only an expanse of bare hills and steep cliffs outstretches before your eyes. There's no sign of anyone. His eyelids lift up and scan ahead once more. Whoever was there is gone. Probably realized I had taken notice. Clever. If that person is avoiding humans, then we aren't looking for a corrupted. Commandant, that was a human. Is that a child? What's a child doing in such a hostile place like this? Thoughts, Lee? As a precaution, I suggest investigating the surrounding area. Something's not adding up here. Let's go have a closer look. Wanshi refers to a small hill on a relatively high terrain. On relatively high terrain. Only upon standing atop the hill do you suddenly get a bigger picture of the surrounding area. You clearly see the desolate desert, a cruel land of death. However, right at this moment, your heart begins to tremble. What's it like on the surface? Vast, primitive, and silent, as if it had remained like this since man first walked upright and would continue until the last man is finally laid to rest. The sun hangs high above the distant clouds. Although clouds cover the surface, the residual brilliance still blazes in proclamation of its existence. Obviously, there is only one light source. When seen from Babylonia, it is merely just an incandescent ball of light. Yet, how can it illuminate such a vast land? Commandant, I'm detecting more than one thermal reading. Wait, that's... A gust of wind carries the sound of fighting. Look toward the source of the sound. Your first instinct upon reaching the top of the hill is to peer into the distance. However, you miss the makeshift camp just below. A cold gust of wind blows through the makeshift tents and log houses with an eerie, scraping noise. The camp is empty, though not because it had been vacated by its occupants, rather because they have gathered outside the camp. Standing on the opposite side of them is no one else but that unyielding pine. It's Hans and Team 1, and also in front of the camp, two distinct groups of people are fighting each other. To one side, a ragged and close-knit group resembling refugees who have long since lived here. To the other side, a fully armed squadron of elite soldiers sent from Babylonia. The sudden appearance of the latter obviously frightened the former. Now at the breaking point, fear and vigilance have given way to unclad hostility. Who are you? Women protect their children like hens to their chicks. The rest of the refugees band together, seemingly ready to take the armed squadron down with them should the soldiers take a step forward. The soldiers on the calibration team grip their weapons tightly. Chief Commander, this camp and its people are near the preset coordinates. They'll be caught in the blast. Should we force them to evacuate? Hans turns his head slightly to the side. Do not fire unless fired upon. They don't pose any threat. His gaze shifts back to the refugees. Do not attempt to attack or resist. I don't want any senseless struggle. Run over. The arrival of the Grey Ravens only adds fuel to the fire. A feeble boy pokes his head out from behind the woman who had just spoken and looks at the calibration team with frightened eyes. Standing before the team of heavily armored soldiers, the refugees refrain from acting rashly for the time being. Oh, it's the kid. Hans turns his head. Grey Ravens, you're here. Chief Commander Hans. We lost contact with Team 6 for quite some time. I thought you hightailed it back to Babylonia. Regardless, we've deployed redundancy teams. Their absence would have likely gone unnoticed. The veteran's commander did little to mask his condescending tone. Our aircraft was hit with turbulence. We had no other choice but to make a crash landing. Hans dismisses it. Tension hangs in the air. Sorry, mind if I interrupt? Despite the inquiry, Wanshi continues to talk without waiting for Hans to respond. I am the construct in charge of reporting on the surface to Babylonia, Wanshi of Strikehawk. You. The president informed me that you were the first to report on the proliferation of the Red Tide's tributaries. Bingo. Let's cut to the chase instead of getting wrapped up in who's right and who's wrong. Holding them at gunpoint will only make matters worse, won't it? Watch of glances at the refugees. Lower your weapons, soldiers. Roger. Hans's order relieves the tension with the refugees. An old man comes out from behind the wall of people. Who the hell are you? We're from Babylonia. As if from the flick of a switch, the villagers' expressions change in an instant. Whispers filled the crowd. Babylonia? You mean the space station of legends? I guess Grandpa wasn't making it up. However, the elderly seemed to look more conflicted. Seems we're in the presence of dignitaries. We're nothing of the sort. We're just troops on a mission. Babylonia will bombard this area with the longest arsenal soon. Please leave at once. Longinus arsenal? What's that? Before Liv can respond, the old man lowers his head and lets out a smile at odds with the severity of the confrontation. Put simply, it's a giant bright light that destroys everything it shines light on. The child can't understand the implication of what the old man had just said. Instead, he only nods ignorantly. You know what we're talking about? The old man raises his head once more, revealing the same cheerless expression as before. Not only about the Longinus arsenal, but also about the zero-point reactor, the hyperdrive, the great evacuation, and all the history that is about to be forgotten by our children. He sighs deeply. I already understand why it is you're here. Do as you will. I just hope you don't make too much of a commotion. The children need their rest. With that, he returns to the refugees behind him and whispers among the group. After a while, the refugees disperse and return to their homes. A few moments later, only the calibration team is left in the center of the camp. What was that? Off to the side, Lucia takes a few steps forward and catches up to the old man preparing to return to his residence. Did you say to them? Or what did you say to them? You know what the weapon is capable of, so you must know that this isn't the time to sit here and await destruction. If you don't leave, you'll all die. I told them exactly that. Take it easy, Lucia. Maybe we just weren't clear. Briefly put, this area will be overrun with punching creatures soon, so Babylonia wants to eliminate them all in one fell swoop. One of the designated coordinates is near this camp. If you continue to stay here, you'll be caught in the shockwave. Even if Babylonia doesn't call down the strike, then those monsters will attack you. You don't need to explain any further. As I said, I know that you are elite forces from Babylonia. As the pride and hope of mankind, after so many years, you return to Earth only to bring us news of destruction. We know that you came here to destroy that red tide of monsters approaching from the west. We know what it is. Many of our comrades have fallen victim to it. When you mentioned the Longinus arsenal, I already knew what repercussions we were going to face. That's what I told them. Your tactics have always been simple and crude. It was before and still is. I'm not surprised. We will not obstruct your mission or interfere with the coordinates you set. Once you finish your mission, you are free to go. You'll die. You've already said that multiple times. If we die, so what? Look around you. This place is home to only a few hundred people scattered throughout. We've been through the great evacuation. When faced with impending doom, some people boarded Eden, while others just barely missed the boat. The former lives a life of ease. The former lives a life of ease aboard Eden, while the others left to eke out a life among the remnants of civilization. Just look at the old veteran behind you. He no longer concerns himself with the likes of us after receiving his golden ticket onto that doomsday ark. Ever since the great evacuation, we have been living among annihilation. We've grown accustomed to it. That's all. Let these old bones go home to get some rest. I'd at least like to keep my last ounce of dignity up until the end. After he finishes speaking, he turns and walks and walks away out of sight. A deathly silence spreads among the team. This was an unexpected turn of events. I'll report this to Babylonia. Wait for my word. What about our mission to configure the nodes? Proceed as normal. Please wait, Chief Commander Hans. There are still people here. Obeying orders is the first requirement of a soldier. Grey Raven Commandant, keep your constructs under control. This has nothing to do with Commandant. Now that you understand, why are you standing here? Proceed to your designated location to deploy the bit domain node on the module. About that, our node was damaged in the crash. Your uselessness is truly amazing. In that case, take your supplies and find a place to stay put. Don't get in my way. Why didn't you give them further warning during the mission briefing? The scouts relayed back more intel than just that. Because I already relayed it to Hans. That will suffice. In some regards, you're even more ruthless than me. Huh. So, you know what our subordinates think of us too, huh? Of course. I'm not deaf. And I'm certainly not a fool. If it really was just a calibrating mission, then the Grey Raven Commandant would have been enough to serve as the chief commander. They've encountered the Red Tide before, and their experience in active combat far exceeds that of others. Yet you chose Hans. Since the last battle in City 75, the Grey Raven Commandant's condition has become unstable. Asimov still isn't sure whether it has had any permanent impact on Usabeni, either mentally or physically. Moreover, the objective of this operation isn't combative. Rather, it requires cooperation to achieve a strategic goal. Since the Grey Ravens are used to fighting in isolation, Usabeni may not be the most suitable choice as chief commander. The suitability of the Grey Ravens is the reason why you selected Hans. Sen pauses a moment, then continues to speak. Some decisions and responsibilities cannot be left to the younger generation, even if there is only the slightest of risk. I trust Hans' judgment. He is our most prominent leader. He has enough experience to deal with any unforeseen issue that should arise. You're too kind and gentle to the younger generation. If you keep sheltering them, it will only backfire. Nikolai, you and I have too much weight on our shoulders and too much blood in our hands. Friend and foe alike. We are remnants of the past. One day, history will use the guillotine to judge those disgraceful sins. At least spare the children from having to bear the responsibilities and sins of their forefathers. Our generation will be the one to sever the chains of hatred. In that case, why let them go down together? First and foremost, to observe whether Usabeni is still suitable for serving as Grey Raven's Commandant. Secondly, sparing them from our responsibility doesn't mean asking them to turn a blind eye forever. One must face his own weakness to embrace the future. Abyss of gravity. Born here, so chose to die here too. Time is fleeting like sand through an hourglass. The sun hangs on the western horizon, shedding light across the lower half of the sky and turning to night upon reaching this far. The dry air and radiational cooling have caused the surrounding temperature to drop rapidly. Scorching heat turns to frigid cold in an instant. The entire camp is quiet beyond imagination. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Except for the occasional clang of metal whenever the calibration team lays equipment. There is only the roar of the cold wind. How do people here endure such an extreme cycle of day and night? Huddled next to an abandoned cabin, you curl up under the tarp not to shield yourself from the sand, but to keep warm. Who had lived in this cabin? Inside, some of the utensils still retained a faint luster. A thin layer of dust indicates that the owner had never returned. After Chief Commander Hans had put the Grey Ravens on standby, they now watched from the sidelines as constructs from Calibration Team 1 continued to configure coordinates. Upon receiving the serum supply, the service personnel has also finished repairing the protective devices used to combat the Red Tide. Theoretically, this is the safest you have been since crash landing. However, anxiety still lingers in your heart. You cannot help but stand and look to the east. Supposedly, the coastline is dozens of kilometers out, the area that Babylonia has to protect at all costs. However, regardless of how hard you strain your eyes as a human, you are unable to behold such a sight. Don't bother. The terrain here isn't high enough to see the coastline. You suddenly hear Wansha's voice behind you. Everyone turns to look at him. All you see is him stretched with a look of exhaustion as he walks over. Not to mention, with such poor weather conditions and low visibility here, human eyesight can't possibly see that far. Wansha? Got no sleep? Constructs don't have the cause of the sleep. I'm just done taking a breather. But he sneers. How can you just loaf around at a time like this? Well, my mission was to pick up the calibration team sent by Babylonia. My work here is done. Can't a guy kick up his feet a while? Sheesh. R&R ain't easy to come by. Before Lee can muster up a retort, Wansha looks her way. Don't you think it's time to change the gauze on your commandant's forehead? Right as Wansha begins to speak, Liv had already begun making preparations. Within no time, she had already begun replacing your bandages. Thanks for the reminder, Wansha. It's not bleeding anymore, Liv. Even still, your bandages need to be replaced periodically to prevent infection. It is not until Liv changes your gauze that she realizes that a considerable amount of sand has adhered to your bloody scab. Cleaning the wound is not exactly going to be a leisurely stroll through the park. Your breath hisses in pain through clenched teeth. Lucia? Understood. Lucia quickly tears open a pack of field rations and stuffs it into your mouth to bite on. God. Squinting your eyes in the dim light, you catch a glimpse of a thin figure poking their head out of a tent behind Liv. Gesture to Liv with your eyes. No amount of stubbornness will stop me from cleaning your wound, Commandant. Before Liv can react, the thin figure was already running over. He scurries over next to Liv and gazes towards you with a doe-eyed look of curiosity. Yeah. Was that the kid from earlier? The boy's gaze falls on you, rather the ration in your mouth. Tear off a piece and hand it to him. Like a kitten, he sticks out his hand and hesitates until he cannot resist any longer. He grabs the ration and wolfs it down. Lucia quickly takes out a second piece and hands it to him. However, the boy does not immediately eat it after taking it this time. Thank you, miss. A woman hurries in before Lucia can respond. She pulls the boy behind her, glances around at everyone cautiously, then looks down at the child by her thigh. Granny, who said you could leave? I'm starving. Did you have a cat for lunch? I'm just so hungry. We'll have food soon. Your dad will be back in no time. But people said he won't. The woman snaps at the boy and interrupts him. Shut your mouth. Don't dare say such a thing. Who said you could talk like that? He'll be back soon, and I mean it. Don't get mad at him, please. It was my idea to give it to him. We have plenty to go around if you want. We don't need your charity. Saying that, she quickly takes the boy and leaves. Forgive her. She has her own troubles. Turning your head to the side, you see the old man who had previously returned to his residence. Near the word stop as she sees the can in his hands. Guess you won't be needing this. I just thought maybe. We're constructs. We don't need food in the conventional sense. But isn't that kiddo human? The old man looks at you. Nodding. How time flies. I never expected to see a person from Eden with my own eyes. So, care for something to eat? The outside is worn down and rusty, but safe to eat as long as the can doesn't bulge or break or leak. This is the last batch of cans produced before the Great Evacuation. These things can be preserved longer than you think, even if it's only leftover soup from the past civilization. No, but thanks. Very well. I'm sure it's a bit preposterous for people who live in the clouds to eat gruel such as this. It's too precious for us to eat it. You're showing us sympathy. That sure is surprising. It's nothing special. Some people used to go catch fish in the sea. Recently, those red creatures, the hetero creatures mentioned, have thrown everyone into a panic. No one dares to venture too far out of the camp. I'm sorry. Why the sudden apology? This isn't your fault. It's no one's fault. The old man's attitude is kind and gentle, unlike his stern demeanor when you first met him. I scared you earlier, didn't I? I didn't mean to. Sometimes you just have to stand up for what you believe in. And what is that exactly? Certain death? The old man does not seem to take offense. Correct. We've decided to stay here and await death. The man's old and hoarse voice seems to float away in the wind. I don't get it. Same here. You may find our answer puzzling. A group of people choosing to stay here and wait for their death. Perhaps you're a cruel joke. But this is how we genuinely feel. It was our intent from the beginning. Why? Do you know about the Arcadia evacuation? Yes. When faced with impending doom, some people boarded Eden, while others just barely missed the boat. Isn't that how the story goes? Yes. In reality, that's not what happened. It wasn't entirely a matter of luck. Perhaps some people just simply didn't want to leave. Yes, some people were unfortunately unable to board Eden, while others remained because their loved ones didn't get a ticket onto Eden. Some people stayed because they didn't want to abandon their homeland. Regardless of the reason, we chose to stay, and we accepted our fate. After making this choice, we planted our roots here and continued to fight. But this place isn't suitable for humanity. This is indeed the case. Even though the wasteland is far from nearby cities and so the corrupted poses little threat, the cruelty of nature provides no safe harbor. The old man nods in agreement. Look at the land around you. This dry and ugly land. We originally lived in the city. We decided on this place and built our home here, albeit after great difficulty. Why did you choose this place? Because nature is terrifying. When civilization collapsed, nature reclaimed every corner of urban life. Without water, electricity, or natural gas, skyscrapers became nothing but steel cages. Everyone died without dignity, like animals. At first, we had the capacity to cremate or bury the bodies, but soon, those left alive could bear it no more. The city was silent. Corpses continued to pile up. You can't imagine the despair, the sight and smell of people you once knew decaying in the city you once loved. Many people died from the Banshee virus, and many died to infectious diseases. In order to survive and avoid the corrupted, we left the city and ended up here. Not too close, but not too far. Here in this wasteland, we watch over humanity's former glory. Who would have thought that a group of mice such as ourselves would still live here to this very day? Save your solemn expression. At first, we thought we wouldn't even last a year, but actually it wasn't as bad as we thought. Thankfully, we had relics of civilization. You see, glass, metal, plastic, Even solar panels can be recycled. Although the semiconductor film is almost worn out, we can still rely on it to produce some electricity. At least it's enough to keep a few lights on at night. These items may seem like worthless garbage to you, but they are treasures to us. Just like this land. My wife and I built our house on this land with our own hands. It may be falling apart and always leaking, but it's my home. We may have lingered on our last breaths, but we kept each other going. The 10 years I spent with her were a short, happy time in my unfortunate life. When she passed away, I buried her on a distant hill overlooking the sea. Most of my generation that chose to stay during the Great Evacuation has turned to dust beneath the wheel of history. Now, there are only a few dozen of us left. But the descendants of those who've died have now grown up and started to raise their own children. When it came time to bury my old friends, I buried them on the same hill overlooking the sea. Standing here, we can look back on the glory of the past and see the tombstones of our old friends. If we were to leave, then we would truly have nothing. Everything we cherish, believe, remember, and love will be completely shattered. Besides, even if you hadn't shown up, we wouldn't have lasted much longer. We scavenge all of our serum from the nearby city. That's bound to run out sooner or later. Everyone knows this, so we are ready to die at any time. Your arrival only means that we will meet our fate sooner. People born here were never optimistic to begin with. Hopeless and destitute, desiring nothing so as to lose nothing. The only thing we have left is our love for this land. We knew our destination when we set foot on this path and spent every day like it was our last. We were born here. We will die here. But haven't your lives suffered by living like this? No. You must know joy to know pain. We don't pursue the luxuries of Eden. We just want to be put to rest with our loved ones at our side when the time comes. If you still have compassion, please don't deprive us of our last request. Why do you want to tell us all this? Because I see weakness and timidity in your eyes. When all of this is over, you'll probably blame your incompetence and live with a heavy sense of guilt. So I want to tell you, don't feel any guilt. We've chosen our own path. You have completed your mission. Alright, that's enough. I don't think this place is worthless. Oh? I don't think this place is worthless. Hearing someone from Eden say that is my little bit of solace before I am finally put to rest. After talking, the old man turns and leaves. A solemn cloud hangs above the team. I don't know. I don't know what to do. How can they be so calm, yet say they're already prepared to die? I can't wrap my head around it. This is all meaningless. I chose to become a construct because even if I am no longer human, I still exist. My new hope is to continue fighting for those in need. I know everything I do has meaning. The people born here have never looked forward to the future. We knew our destination when we set foot on this path. We spent every day like it was our last. Because you haven't hoped for a future from the beginning? Lucia. Liv turns and gently hugs Lucia. I don't know how we can make this right either. Something more important than one's life. Wansha had been standing off to the side with his eyes closed. Suddenly his eyes open like an alert falcon. A few seconds later, Hansa appears before everyone. Poised as always, no one can glean any indication of his mood from that stern face of his. I received the latest orders from Babylonia. Under the premise of establishing the nodes within 24 hours and ensuring the success of the mission, according to the instructions of Articles 21 and 22 of the World Government Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act, if civilians are found while executing a mission, they must be evacuated to safety, regardless of force. Gray Raven. Mission clear. Mission unclear. You want to repeat that again, sir? Never ending. Ah, really? Is that what you think? Nothing strange about that. But she is different. Even though she's never been to Earth herself, she's had all sorts of unrealistic fantasies about it. And when she was still around, she used to always ask me if there are any humans left on Earth. Isla closes her eyes. Our primary school teachers all said that it was the cradle of life in our birthplace. But due to the punishing virus, we were forced to temporarily leave its embrace and protect her from Babylonia. So, Isla, do you think there are still people on Earth? I think so. Not everyone evacuated during Operation Acadia. There's bound to still be people on the surface. Don't our textbooks say that there were billions of people on the surface at one point? Billions. There's no way Babylonia can support that many people. Obviously, it could probably only support a small fraction of the population. My thoughts exactly. But it's fine. One day we will reunite with our comrades on the surface. When that time comes, we will share in the marvelous things we have seen and rejoice in song. Nothing is more romantic, is it not? Isla opens her eyes. We were so naive back then, always sharing our childish fantasies. She told me how romantic it would be to reunite with our comrades on the surface. We will share in the marvelous things we have seen and rejoice in song. But we never considered at the time why had those on the surface not come to Babylonia? What sort of life would they have had on the surface? What would people on the surface think of us? Your vision returns. There are no wonders to be found here, only helpless dismay. Seeing you lost in thought again, Hans furrows his eyebrows. Grey Ribbon, come on, Commandant. You can't even bother to follow orders now, I take it? No, it's not that. Commandant is... Wansha scans you with his peripheral vision as if in contemplation. Hans speaks directly. Enough. I don't have time for your excuses. Begin evacuating the refugees. If they aren't willing to cooperate, resort to more coercive measures. Before the other three can respond. I don't agree with this. This kind of coercion ignores the will of others. It's wrong. Are you defying orders, Usabeni? Watch your attitude in every statement you make. You don't want to get court-martialed when all of this is said and done. Lee stands in front of you. Understood. Please give us some more time. Not all of the nodes have been deployed yet, have they? That's right. But let me make myself clear. Once the nodes are fully deployed, Babylonia will obliterate the surrounding area. If you don't wish to be decimated along with it, I suggest you hurry up and complete your mission. Finished speaking, Hans turns and leaves. Oh, well, looks like I'm not needed here anymore. Catch you later. I'm gonna recharge my batteries. Knocking open the door to the residence. Sir, Babylonia is going to unleash a wide-scale attack on the surrounding area. Please gather your family and evacuate immediately. Where do we evacuate to? Liv bites her lip. Because the answer is simple. Nowhere. Eden has no extra tickets, and there is no place on the surface that can be called a safe refuge. The conservation area has not yet been built. There's simply no way to accommodate all the displaced people. At present, There is only just enough time to evacuate the refugees to an area that will not be affected by the blast. The refugees smile sarcastically and lose silence. Enough of the hypocrisy. Is this really in our best interest? Or do you just not want to see us die before your very eyes? Look at you. Your conscience is just as repulsive as your actions. Removing us from our homeland will make you sleep better at night, but it won't make our lives any better. That's not what we intend on. The refugee slams the door in their faces. As the fourth household. Why are they so stubborn? The old man seems to be their leader. If he is willing to leave, others will probably follow. Agreed. After several more doors slam in their faces, a familiar face opens the door. It's you. Mister? I know why you're here. Lucia nods. But you should know my answer. I already told you. I still don't get it. Why? Is it because we aren't looking at this from your point of view? I'm sure you understand, kiddo. Our point of view is not as different from yours as you think. In your eyes, what is Babylonia? It's a bastion for humanity's strongest. No, that's not what I asked. I mean, what was Babylonia before the punishing virus and the Great Evacuation? It was humanity's first FTL colonization ship. Then why hasn't it taken you all into deep space? Because we lost Earth and we want to take it back. Why do you want to take it back? Our mission is to take back humanity's homeland. That is our mission. That is the meaning of our existence. But this homeland is no longer of any use to you. Cities destroyed, civilizations collapsed. Earth is now just a sea of ruins. Babylonia floats above Earth, just like we stand here in these ruins. Why not leave? Have you ever thought that taking back Earth might be meaningless? Now you are a construct, not a human being. You don't need to inherit the meaning of human existence. Lucia wavers slightly. No, you're wrong. This is what we were born to do. That may have been why you were created, but that doesn't mean it has to be why you continue to exist. Much like how people should live, but they shouldn't just live. There are far more important things than to just live. Do you understand now? Lucia closes her eyes. This is the path I chose. Just like this is the path each of you has chosen. The old man smiles faintly. Yeah, exactly. This is the path we chose. And this is the meaning we give our lives. We have nothing left. Our only driving force left is our attachment to this land. It's the only thing that supports our menial existence. Our last wish is to forever rest within its embrace. You think we're unreasonable choosing to die rather than to leave? I think you're being equally unreasonable. The irony of man. People can never reach a real mutual understanding. This land is our blood, sweat, and tears. Our history, our memories, everything we created, cherished, loved, and lost. As I have said, if you still have an ounce of compassion, please don't deprive us of our last request. Please respect our last will. Lee steps forward and pats Lucia on the shoulder. We understand. Sorry to bother you. Goodbye. Just as you are about to leave, you hear a commotion nearby. Don't you think it's ridiculous to tell us that we are also citizens of the world government? Don't you remember how you treated us when the evacuation started? You held us at gunpoint to prevent us from boarding Eden. You left us behind like junk. Now you dare to come back and rescue us? Are you kidding me? Get out. Get out of here. I don't need your fake compassion now. The person she is confronting is none other than Hans. His starched and pressed uniform had been stained, almost like someone had poured a bucket of dirty water on him. Chief Commander Hans! You! Oh, sneeze. And it doesn't come out. Come on, man. I want to sneeze. Whatever. By the time you rush over, the two of them are about to clash. Suddenly you hear the distant serenade of the whale song. It's very faint, but I can hear it. The serene and resonating sound floats gracefully in the wind like a bird through the clouds. It sounds close, yet distant. The sound is not grating, but Hans and the old man who had just arrived wince at the same time. Not good. Attention, soldiers. Drop what you're doing and prepare for battle. Hey, over to the west. Despite going to recharge his batteries, Wanshi had been keeping watch this entire time. Suddenly he jumps down from the hill. His laziness was now replaced with unprecedented seriousness. Soon everyone realizes the gravity of the situation, because a large number of punishing hetero creatures burst out of the yellow sand and begin to pursue him. They're fighting each other? Oh no. All refugees have been evacuated inside the residence. All the hetero creatures are in. They are scattered all around the camp. They aren't paying attention to us yet. We must eliminate them right away. We can't let them attack the citizens. All hetero creatures in the camp are destroyed. Oh. Don't let your guard down. More are coming. Oh, I can hear the whale song. These creatures just won't stop. Wait, that sound has stopped. The hetero creatures are retreated. Don't come any closer. Right at that moment, a bullet pierces the head of the hetero creature. It writhes on the ground but continues to breathe. That is until a sharp blade cuts it in half. Lucia shakes off the blood from her blade, if that is what it is. Her imposing yet elegant manner is like that of a tiger lily. Are you okay? I'm okay. Behind you! A hetero creature charges Lucia's blind spot from behind. Before it tackles Lucia, the creature is intercepted by a blast from Liv's levy gun. Don't get careless, Lucia. Was that the last one? Yeah, the song has stopped. There shouldn't be any more hetero creatures. That sound is... What a drag. Hetero creatures have started appearing here too. If those things are already here, the red tide must be close by. During those fighting moments, I'm probably not going to be talking a whole lot aside from narrating and shit, just to give my voice a rest. 2 hours and we're only halfway through this first part of it. Yeah, getting through Echo Aria is going to take a while. Definitely. Ashes to ashes. Did you see those monsters just now? If you stay here, they'll kill you before Babylonia does. If that is what fate has in store for us, then so be it. Our bodies will return to dust and our souls will return to the earth. To hell with fate. There's no reasoning with you. This will be all for nothing. The sudden emergence of hetero creatures causes tensions to arise between both sides. The calibration team and the refugees have reached an impasse over meaningless prattle. The sudden cry puts a stop to the altercation. Ray? Ray! Has anyone seen Ray? Where is he? Where is my grandson? After her companions shake their heads, she shifts her gaze to the calibration team. Her look of alarm gives way to one of panic. Have you seen my grandson? She glances at each of the constructs one by one. Finally, her eyes fixate on Lucy and Liv. She runs over to Lucy and firmly grips her shoulders as if she is her only lifeline. Have either of you seen Ray? Where is he? You saw him, didn't you? My grandson. He was right next to me. Please remain calm. Who is Ray? That boy from before? She nods her head anxiously. Did he get scared in all the chaos and hide somewhere? I didn't see him. Neither did I. If you're looking for the kid, I'm pretty sure he ran to the west when all the fighting broke out. The west? Well, that's... She collapses to her knees as if drained of all of her strength. No, don't take my Ray from me. Lucy and Liv look over. Hey, I meant... He's just a child. He couldn't have gone far. I'm sure we can still catch up to him. Well, then let's... Grey Ravens. There's no time to waste on such trivial matters. If you've got that much free time on your hands, it would be better spent guarding against attacks from hetero creatures. But, Chief Commander, Team 3 just sent a comlink. They've deployed the bit domain node. Good. What about the other teams? Team 2 and Team 5 were also attacked by hetero creatures, and the bit domain nodes were destroyed. No news from Team 4. Team 7 and Team 8 are still exploring the Red Tide periphery. It's uncertain whether they can deploy their nodes. What is the casualty report? 30%. Hear that, Grey Ravens? You're here playing hide and seek while countless others are fighting up ahead. Our troops are getting wounded and giving their lives for this cause. I've given you a compromise, but it seems that you are still unable to complete your mission. Do you know whose time you are wasting in this place? You're wasting the time and lives of your comrades. We have no energy to waste on such trivial matters. If you can't persuade them to leave, use force. If you don't want to use force, then let them stay here and await their death. Our mission is far greater than their lives. Have you forgotten what the CTO said? Once the red tide spreads to the coastline, not only will the people here die, the entire earth will fall. While you squander your senseless kindness on such trivial matters, have you thought about the fate of humanity for even a minute? You've abandoned the interests of the greater good for your own personal interests. I think you should go back to FOS College and read the military code until you can recite it verbatim. You disappoint me. I thought your reputation would precede itself as the chief of FOS, but I guess rotten wood can't be carved after all. Find a corner and stay out of my sight. I don't want to see you until Babylonia issues the evacuation order. Of course, if you choose to stay here and await death, I'm not within my power to say otherwise. That's exactly what someone fortunate enough to board Eden would say. For the greater good. How righteous. That never gets old. How morally sound. I am truly amazed. He turns his gun on his own compatriots while preaching about the greater good. Should you trample on our last wishes under the banner of righteousness now? Hans remains quiet and closes his eyes. Wanshi looks at him and glances over. He turns his back and folds his hands behind him. His eyes were empty as he looks out into the far west. Look at Wanshi's folded hands. I don't know what we should do. I can understand why they don't want to leave this place. There must be something precious here that they don't want to give up. But I also understand why Chief Commander Hans has made his decision. He's considering the fate of humanity. Individual will versus the greater good. Why are we still forced to make binary choices between one or the other? The tension in the air is stifling. Refusing the company of your 3 comrades, you walk outside the camp alone. The frigid wind dries your lips and face. With the current developments, this seems to be the only way to clear the whirlwind of thoughts clouding your mind. You planned on coming here to think alone. However, you see a familiar figure in the corner. Ugh. Washa folds his arms and leans against the cabin door. He glances over with his peripheral vision and yawns. Oh, it's you. Where's your team, is there any? I came here alone. Ugh. I was with the face. You don't think I was waiting for you here, do you? The hand signal you did. It's a secret code used in FOS. Did you call me here? That's what the captain taught me in Conley in spare time. He said that all FOS commandants know it. I was just bored, and it came to mind. I never thought I'd actually use it. Only then did I clearly realize that you are really from FOS College, like my captain. After all, you don't look the type. So, what is it? With the recent turn of events, the Science Council hasn't been able to fully analyze the Red Tide. But you've heard it too, haven't you? That song? Bingo. I was the first scout to find the Red Tide tributaries and break the news to Babylonia. I thought Babylonia would have a more methodical strategy, but in the end, it's just reliant on brute force. Time is of the essence. Of course, let's save it for another time. Curious about something, though. Grey Raven infiltrated the Ascendant's underground base and had a direct confrontation with them, correct? Nod. I suspected as much. So, has your team heard this sound before? Nope. In other words, this is a special case, or a new development. Well, as a scout, our worst nightmare is the lack of intel on the battlefield. Even a minor omission can be disastrous. I understand the urgency, but implementing a strategy without knowing the whole picture, how can they guarantee that the Longinus arsenal will be enough to stop the Red Tide? You mean... I mean, a widespread attack is the best course of action based on existing intel. But that doesn't mean it's the solution to our problem. Wansha becomes quiet all of a sudden. Instead, he casts a sideways glance at a corner. The woman from before takes a few steps out of the corner, then kneels on the ground. I beg of you, please forgive my recklessness. As long as you're willing to listen to my request, I don't care what you take from me. I know you aren't interested in what we have, so please, please, I beg you for one more act of kindness. Help her up. Thank you. I know asking this may seem foolish, but... boo-hoo. I'm sorry, it's supposed to be a serious moment, but... Comfort her. Please help me. Help me bring back Ray. You've seen the boy. He's too small. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't understand. It's my fault for telling him that his father went to the nearby city to look for food. That's why he ran off to such a dangerous place. Every time he's frightened, he always wants his father to protect him. I shouldn't keep hiding this from him. You mean his father? Yes. Yes, he's my son. Where's your son now? Several days ago, he said he was going to the ruins to help us look for cans. And then, he never came back. When I tried to look for him, I heard his voice, coming from that red liquid. I knew what that meant. We've lost a lot of our people that way, either from falling in or getting splashed and corrupted by it, stopping breathing after a few days. At first, many people were drawn to it. Later, everyone understood that even if the voice of a loved one came from it, they should never get close to it. Don't listen to the siren's call. But the child Ray, he doesn't know. I don't have the heart to tell him that his father is already dead. Covering her face, you only hear her muffled cries of grief. After crying a short while, she gradually regains composure. I know our decision must seem ridiculous to you, but please help fulfill my last wish. Or at least let me be with Ray until the very end. I don't want to die alone here. I have nothing left. Nothing. Don't take Ray away from me too. Her tears turn to weeping in agony. I get it. Huh? Get what? This is why you brought me here, isn't it? I didn't say anything. You don't have to. I'm just a scout acting alone. Chief Commander Hans isn't my commanding officer. I'm free to act as I please until my captain issues the second phase of my orders. You know what this means, don't you? Yes. Your decisiveness is quite endearing. No wonder my captain thinks so fondly of you. But understand one thing. No one can guarantee what we are doing is right, or that everything will end happily ever after. No one will know how you put everything on the line. No one will thank you. You may even be court-martialed. Knowing this, do you still want to continue? Yes. Let's go. Hey, you're hiding back there. Did you catch that? Your commandant gave the okay. Lee emerges from behind the tent. He stands there staring at you. Commandant, you mustn't. Unauthorized actions are equivalent to fleeing the battlefield. You will be labeled a defector for going rogue, and in a normal army, you could be executed on the spot. Not to mention putting yourself in danger. We don't have much time left. Once the last node is deployed, Babylonia won't wait to begin evacuation. Lee, believe me, if we don't hold on to this, you'd never be able to forgive yourself. If you put it that way, you can't save everyone, but at least save those you can't touch. Can't you just take it easy for a day? I've always trusted your judgment. You are our commandant. If you insist, then take us with you. No. You mean this time is different? You always surprise me, Commandant. You're right. If the Grey Ravens just got up and left, we'd all be labeled defectors. Now's not the time to do things by the book, right? The Grey Ravens aren't afraid of being court-martialed. If there are any criminal charges, we'll face the repercussions together. That's not it. I need you all to stay here. Lee, you know what I mean. This isn't for your own good. This is for the good of everyone. You want us to help maintain our forces and be ready to respond to any potential threat, correct? Understood. I'll inform Lucy and Liv. Return in one piece. We won't leave without you. The Grey Ravens will always be as one. Lee walks up to you and pats your shoulder heavily. Take this with you. Lee hands you a long black hexagonal needle and a comms device. Press the top to activate the node. I disassembled it and made some minor modifications. You just need to activate it. Take it with you. The comms device has been repaired, but the reception is unstable here. If it exceeds 30 kilometers, you won't be able to maintain a stable connection. Obviously, I hope you don't end up going that far. Lee, don't look at me like that's exactly what you plan on doing. Remember, we won't evacuate until you come back. And you? What's up? Our commandant. Wanshi cuts off Lee mid-sentence. Yeah, I got it. Lee nods. Don't let anything happen to our commandant. Time for a rescue mission. We did one the other day, now we're doing another one in a different world, in a different universe. Reason to fight. Ooh, playing as the boy himself. The outline of the refugee camp gradually fades into the distance, and the temperature begins to drop rapidly. Unlike the wilderness, the few refugees scattered throughout the camp were enough to dispel the cold from their breath alone. But now the cold wind holds you in its frigid embrace. The heat from your breath condenses into a white fog. The thought of potentially freezing to death spurs you on as you follow the scout's white figure onward. Wanshi's familiarity with the surrounding terrain allows him to adeptly find the most efficient route for conserving strength while also avoiding the red tide. That being said, the trek is still no easy feat for a human. Why didn't you put on a thermal suit? It's too heavy. It hinders movement. Why are you willing to throw your life away for someone you just met? You really are something else. Let's stop for some water. I remember the terrain up ahead. As long as he didn't jump into the red tide, we should be right on him. Thank you. Don't mention it. You stop next to a rock formation and rest. Your intermittent daydreaming hasn't been acting up recently, has it? How could you tell? I used to be in the medical corps. I've still got an eye for that sort of stuff. Happens frequently and without warning. The symptoms don't correspond to any disease I recall. What's wrong? Forget I asked. Like I'm trying to prod you for anything. Anyway, I already know about your condition. I won't let it happen when everything's on the line again. Why did you bring me out here? Did you say all of that to me on purpose? It's not just me. It's for Lee as well. Clever. I'm starting to see why my captain thinks of Grey Raven so highly. Wanshi's dull expression suddenly turns sharp. His voice no longer carries the same apathetic tone. Correct. I could have easily found this child by myself. Constructs move faster without having to drag a human along. But you did anyway. Because I was curious. Curious about what caused the red tide and the evolution of the punishing virus. Even though you remain quiet, you can't help but think of that colossal nightmare. Hang on. Ah, there it is. Oh, that feels so much better now. Ugh. Sorry. Excuse me. The hetero creature known as polyphages. The same creatures that nearly spelled doom for Grey Raven. Hetero creature named polyphage. This is a monster bred by the Ascendants, the polyphage. It's similar to the rail heterozygotes we have encountered before. After preliminary analysis, we determined that it's also driven by heterocore fragments. However, the situation is fundamentally different from that on Actilec. Even though both are driven by heterocore fragments, the polyphage is far more complex than the rail heterozygote. It's not a heterozygote, but rather a new type of punishing creature that simulates organisms on Earth through evolution. In other words, it's a hetero creature. Although there is no conclusive evidence, we reasonably suspect that the heterocore fragments within it not only serve as the power source for its own existence, but also triggers a red tide. Otherwise, the timing of the two would be too coincidental. It's about the battle with the Ascendants. Information on the polyphage has been released, but the fact that they contain heterocore fragments is still top secret. There's Benny, I hope you can keep the events of what happened underground that day confidential. Of course, be sure to pass on this message to your team word for word. Everyone has been silent about what happened that day. But we're scouts. It's not hard for us to piece together the clues. Not long after we received reports of the victory on the front line, the surging red tide suddenly went inert. I beg your pardon? You guessed it. Even with the recent surging of the red tide, it's become far less turbulent than what it was once. Even at high tide, the punishing concentration is far lower than what it once was. In other words, the red tide has weakened. What did you do to cause this? Your vision fills with the image of the polyphage completely disintegrating among the radiant glow. You still need to keep quiet? No matter, your answer won't have any bearing on my conclusion anyway. Even if Babylonia isn't willing to disclose any information, there's one similarity with our current situation. Based on their pure concentration of the punishing virus, these things are essentially the same as the heterocore encountered in the space station. Is the fragment that hit Aslan the only heterocore fragment that fell from the space station? Alright, never mind. I can tell by the look at your face. The once inert red tide has begun to surge once more into a tributary. We can't use conventional rules and logic to infer something like the red tide. That being said, we can't completely ignore the underlying meaning, can we? Lansha turns his head and looks to the west. The intricate web of tributaries stretches out to the horizon. Looking across these tributaries, what do you think we would see at the end of it? At the time, Babylonia concentrated all its energy on the prism and hit the heterocore with pinpoint precision. Even then, they failed to completely destroy it. What makes them so confident that a widespread attack on the surface will finally put an end to this? A wider blast means that the damage output to any single target is drastically reduced. What if? And I mean what if? The red tide has a source. Destroying the source of the red tide wouldn't cause it to disappear, but it wouldn't be able to research relentlessly. Then we would just have to figure out an effective method to combat the red tide. We'll eliminate it sooner or later. It's only a matter of time. That's why I need you. Only commandants have the authority to deploy the bit domain node, right? Your team member Lee senses this too. You're far more daring than what I imagined. That's because my captain told me about something that is written in your student manuals. As a valedictorian of FOS College, I'm sure you know it. Exceptions prove the rule and destroy the battle plan. Hoorah. So Chrome has heard that saying too. He is indeed a top student, that's why he is required to know everything. But if Kamui didn't pester him, he wouldn't have made this an interesting story. After all, I'm a sniper. The sniper's motto is, reach out and touch someone. I thought you were more indifferent to these things. You're right. I don't care about what you're tangled up in. Whether that be with them or with Chief Commander Hans, those poor people are just caught up in the universal values of the past. Then why get involved? No reason, really. I know a man who was kind to me, but I couldn't repay him. Until now. Oh. Masha's face turns blank, as if gazing at an old friend across time and space rather than at the present situation. Just an outsider from the Golden Age. That being said, he's far more interesting than someone who drowned in the glory of the Golden Age. Wansha closes his eyes. Upon opening his eyes, all of his emotions have been swept away. Enough about this. There is a solution to everything. Even if it might not be common practice, I just want to use my method to see if it can solve this crisis. I just want all of this to end quickly, so I can get some proper shut-eye without having to worry about anything. What about you? Why do you want to get involved? I just think that we should never give up hope. Is that so? I see. Well, enough about this. Our top priority now is to fix the kid. Or find the kid. I said fix. Find him. That kid should be nearby. Time to wake up and observe the environment. Uh-oh. Oh, I kind of remember this. The red tide will rise when the sound starts. Don't go in. Okay, yeah, I remember this. Find somewhere to land in advance. Blah, those traces ahead should be footprints. Still fairly new. Must be from that kid. Watch out, hit our creatures nearby. Let's come back, retreat to high ground. Get over there and wait for the tide to fall. Woohoo! That was close. Gone. Continue with the operation. Luckily, the wind and tide hasn't erased the footprints yet. This way. Traces are gone. Let's search around. There are 3 spots we can use to hide from the tide. The kid must have also stopped here. I hope he didn't encounter any head or creature or jumped into the red tide himself. Something's not right. The rise and fall of red tide have no pattern. But any kid managed to avoid all the danger to get here. Hi! Stop. Oh. Red tide is right ahead. It's likely that he jumped in. Unlikely. I can see scratching marks on the ground. Why would he stand here for so long? See anything? The traces are heading back to where they began. He took a different route, though, across a region where the red tide wasn't so prevalent, as if someone was guiding him. Whatever. It's not something we can worry. Looks like we don't need to waste our time here. The kid has already gone back. You hear the whale song again. Wanshi's face turns grim. Want to turn back? Of course not. If it's an organism, there must be a heart. So, before we reach the limit of our comms, contact Lee. Whew. Looks like I don't have to remind you. Lee's hologram appears on the comms. He quickly glances at you and breathes a sigh of relief. Looks like you're okay. Briefly on the situation. Searching for the source of the red tide. Got it. I trust your judgment. I'll tell Lucy and Liv. I'm not sure how much time I can buy you. Come back ASAP before your protective device reaches its limit. Hey, Strikehawk. What's up? Our commandant. Masha cuts off Lee mid-sentence. Yeah, I got it. Transmission over. So, let's go. Let's cross this area. Even if we don't know what awaits us there. Nice. Voice of yesterday. There's a lot more nodes to go through. Voice of yesterday. Only from that lullaby could they feel the last bit of warmth from their past. Before Ray began to understand the world around him, he had already forgotten his mother's face. From very early on, he was raised by his father and grandma. His grandma has always lived in the shadow of hatred. She says that the punishing virus has taken everything from her. How did it exactly? Ever since he was born into this world and opened his eyes for the first time, he did not know. The world was already like this. But everyone always tells him that the world should not be like this. that machines should not attack humans, that those towering builds used to be our homes. Mankind had spread to every corner of the earth, conquered the highest mountain, and reached the deepest trench. We were just shy of leaving this planet and spreading our footprints across the cosmos. We should not be like rats subsisting in the dark corners of an apocalyptic world. However, he had never seen that bygone era. All that remains is his hands are the vestiges of the past. Perhaps not even that. Should he be filled with hate? Toward whom? People do not blame landslides, earthquakes, tsunamis, and the cruelty of nature. When something has become a part of this world, it is no different from natural disasters. The punishing virus is no different. Ray has only seen this world, so he has naturally accepted all of its cruelty. Deep within his memory, he sees the blurry image of a woman hugging him and humming an unknown song. A lullaby. At least, that's what the people of the Golden Age called it. The lyrics have been lost to time. All that remains is the melody. It's like a gentle stream of warm and tender feelings. That's the last sound left by his mother. Only from that lullaby could they feel the last bit of warmth from their past. Daddy? Daddy? Where are you? Daddy, I'm scared. Daddy. Ray. Hearing the familiar voice, the boy hurries in the direction of the tide. The voice of waves is close at hand, as if within reach. But before the boy can get close to the river, a magnificent and loud sound masks his father's whispers. A slender female shadow looms above the red tide. He stops in his tracks. Hearing the words contained within the song, the boy burst into tears. Lee, you're back. Where's the Commandant? Gone. What do you mean gone? Where did the Commandant go? They searched for the source of the red tide with the Strike Hawk. I can't let the Commandant go alone. And with that, she prepares to leave, only to be stopped by Lee. That won't be necessary. The Commandant isn't alone. The Strike Hawk is there too. Wansha? That makes me feel a little better, but if it's just the two of them? Lee, can you explain? The Commandant wouldn't just leave without a reason. I want to know why. Lucia, Liv, the Commandant orders us to wait here. Why? Aren't the Grey Ravens a team? And with the Commandant's current state, the fact that Grey Ravens will always be a team is precisely why we are staying. Lucia, you were confused once too. I'm sure you trust the Commandant's intuition. Lucia's concern begins to subside. Because there are things that only we can do here. Because everyone else is here. Exactly. If we went with Commandant, we wouldn't be able to help with if disaster strikes. Whether that be gathering everyone together, protecting them, or buying enough time for the Commandant. Are you worried? Are you afraid of being court-martialed with the Commandant? No, of course not. I'm just worried about the Commandant's safety. But I trust the Commandant's judgment. Same here. Let's use this time to do what the Commandant wants us to do. Chief Commander Hans, you're Grey Raven? Correct, and the Grey Raven's technical support construct. If you have any issues, speak with your Commandant instead of reporting directly to me. I hope the Grey Raven Commandant taught you all proper chain of command. I know the proper chain of command, but special circumstances have left our Commandant indisposed. Indisposed? What do you mean? The Commandant has already left. Come again. The Commandant has already left to find a child named Ray. When did the Commandant leave? Not too long ago. I disassembled the functional part of our bit domain node and gave it to the Commandant to be deployed. If I understand you correctly, the Grey Raven Commandant is blatantly violating my orders and you are an accessory to the Commandant's disobedience? I don't think seeking a solution to our current predicament is in violation of your orders, sir. As far as I'm concerned, you only came to tell me that you are going to be court-martialed together. No. Chief Commander, we came here hoping that you would reconsider the strike plan in a favor of a precision strike that would wipe out the red tide and protect the refugees without the need to relocate them. If you have such a plan, I'm all ears. Not yet, but I specialize in problem solving. Chief Commander, please allow me to... Hans forcefully interrupts Lee. If that's the case, then quit wasting my time. You disappoint me. I was already perfectly clear with your commandant. Either they leave or die. There is no third option. Your only mission is to evacuate the refugees before Babylonia activates their longest arsenal. Unfortunately, your efforts have yet to yield results. A flurry of footsteps approaches, causing Lee and Hans to turn and look. Lucy and Liv bring the refugees to the field before Hans. 2 more constructs. Are you playing games with me, Grey Raven? Chief Commander, I beg you to listen to what the refugees have to say. They've already been loud and clear. They refuse to leave and want to await death. No, that's not it, sir. They are just sad, angry, helpless, and desperate. Chief Commander, please pardon my audacity, but have you ever been betrayed? As a soldier, I'm sure you vehemently oppose betrayal. No honest man tolerates betrayal. What would you think if you and your comrades were surrounded on the battlefield, and the commander ruled that sacrificing your troops was beneficial to the war effort? I would not call it betrayal. If sacrificing myself would lead to victory, I'd gladly die on the battlefield. Exactly. Every soldier in Babylonia is willing to sacrifice their life for a distant victory. That is how we are educated. That is why we understand that this is what we were born to do as soldiers. But what about civilians? Not everyone can or must understand the meaning of a distant victory, nor will they be willing to sacrifice their will to achieve it. Do we not stand here to protect the free will of the people? In the situation I just described, if your troops are protecting a group of people, and the commander orders them to be abandoned, what would you do? Would you abandon them and allow the enemy to kill the civilians you were protecting? Or would you order your troops to fight to the death? Soldiers must protect civilians. However, if they can fight to protect them and choose not to, that is betrayal. Quit trying to strawman me. The World Government Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act should only apply to civilians of the world government. In doing so, you regard them as comrades. Do you not? Chief Commander, take a look. These are the people under your protection. They are parents, spouses, children, and siblings. They've done nothing wrong. But they have been met with disaster. They have only one small wish, which is to protect their home until the very end. The Commandant went to find the child out of sympathy for the child's crying grandmother. She can be saved just by reaching out with a helping hand. Enough. Give it a rest. You've already wasted enough of my time as is. This isn't the first time I've been in this situation. I've witnessed countless people during the Great Evacuation beyond my saving. At that time, the horizon was painted red by countless who perished. The only chance of survival was up. The laws of war are complex yet simple. All factors can be quantified into the addition and subtraction of effective strength. The first party to have their effective strength reduced to 0 will be declared the loser. If we can think about feelings, but war will not. Neither will the punishing virus. In our war against the virus, the only thing we can do is try our best to preserve our effective strength. Some people call us hypocrites, but only those who survive are qualified to criticize hypocrisy. If you see someone crying for their children in front of you, but if you don't stop the red tide from entering the ocean, millions more will cry for their children. Are you capable of protecting each and every one of them? Do you have the ability to save everyone every time you encounter a difficult choice? This is the first time you have been faced with such a choice, isn't it? And this won't be the last time. I guarantee you that. Despite being barricaded outside by the constructs guarding Hans, Liv remains persistent. This is cruelty. Chief Commander Hans, please reconsider. Not for glory or for faith. These meaningless deaths are unreasonable and avoidable. Chief Commander, we are soldiers. We stand on this land in order to protect our comrades. Whether that be the people of Babylonia or the people on Earth, we are comrades. We shouldn't turn our weapons on those we should be protecting. Chief Commander, did you hear what I said? Did you say something? We received a transmission from Team 7. They have deployed their bit domain node. We have deployed our node. The Red Tide's tributary is still some distance away from us. We can't guarantee that the Red Tide won't flood the area within Babylonia's next orbital cycle. Now is the optimal time for activating the node. Do you want to authenticate and activate the bit domain nodes now? Chief Commander? No, just... Before you can finish talking, a cry interrupts him. Ray! Ray! Behind the dunes of yellow sand, a thin figure walks toward the camp. The woman on the verge of collapse rushes forward. After seeing the boy's face, she slaps him, kneels down in the sand, and hugs him tightly. Noticing that the boy shows signs of corruption, Liv rushes forward, injects a serum into the boy's arm, and then quietly steps aside. The boy feels a stinging hot sensation on his face before he can even process what has happened. Sorry, Granny. I was just so scared. I wanted to find Daddy. Ray, your daddy. I found him. The woman just takes this as the boy's overactive imagination after being frightened. Really? Where did you find him? But so what? Now that it is over, there is no need to correct or shatter the boy's dream. Yeah, he was in that red water. I heard Daddy. What did he say? He said, take care and live a long life. The woman's eyes open widely. She instantly recalls a memory long ago. Before all of the tragedies, the newborn child rests in her arms, so fragile, but so full of hope. She kisses her baby on the forehead, and then says the same thing to him. It all seemed like just yesterday. She turns to face the constructs of the calibration team. No resentment, no hatred. She had exhausted all her emotions. Her voice was hoarse from crying, like a mother bear that had lost her cub. Standing off to the side, Liv instantly understood the reproach within her eyes without uttering a word. Why didn't you come sooner? At that moment, Liv gets choked up with an overwhelming sense of guilt and empathy. Why didn't we come sooner? If we just came here earlier, just a little bit earlier. If only I had come here sooner. If only I was a bit stronger. If only I could bear some of their agony. Would I have been able to prevent this from happening? But how much earlier? A few days, weeks, years before the Acadia evacuation, or before the ensuing collapse of chaos of society. No one has an answer to this question. No one can answer this question. Dang. Whale song. A few hours ago. Babylonia, come in. Who shall I connect you to, Commander Hans? Connect me to President Hassan. I have a status report. Transferring comms. What is it, Hans? We have found a number of refugees in the attack zone. Understood. Anything else? Shall we proceed according to the plan? What do you suggest? The other two calibration teams are still en route, but according to visual estimates, the red tide is spreading faster than expected. Teams will have to adjust their node positions accordingly to expand the blast area. We can only rely on handheld devices for surveying and mapping, which significantly delays the time in which we can execute the plan. Considering the time required to change orbit, and for Babylonia to charge the arsenal, combined with the terrain nearby and the mobility speed of the troops, it will take at least 10 hours to ensure that all nodes are deployed. By that time, the red tide will inevitably spread to an area less than 10 kilometers away from the refugee camp. To be on the safe side, I don't suggest relocating the nodes. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that the attack range will completely cover the red tide. We have issued an emergency evacuation order to the refugees, but they are unwilling to vacate the area. How do you wish to proceed? Although the World Government Parliament has been relocated to space with the Eden-class Babylonia, the people on the surface are still our comrades. We are all citizens of the world government. Citizens must fulfill their basic obligations, including cooperating with the army in emergency asylum. According to the instructions of Article 21 of the World Government Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act. If civilians are found while executing a mission, they must be notified and evacuated to safety. Unfortunately, it appears that they are unwilling to evacuate. According to the instructions of Article 22 of the World Government Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act, if civilians insist on remaining within the boundaries of an operation, military forces are authorized to forcefully remove all civilians. You know quite well. I have committed all of the rules and regulations to memory, even if they are no longer applicable in this era. Please allow me to evacuate these refugees under the pretense of successfully deploying the domain nodes, with or without force. Of course, granted. Evacuate the civilians by any means necessary. But remember, Babylonia will only initiate the attack once node deployment has been authenticated, regardless of the evacuation is a success or not. We have only one chance. This is for all of humanity. Understood. Any other issues? No, sir. Report complete, Mr. President. Wait. What is it, Mr. President? Hans, you experienced a great evacuation firsthand. You're one of the most experienced soldiers in active service. You should know why I entrusted you to be the commander of this operation instead of handling over the task to the younger generation. For example, the up-and-coming Grey Raven Commandant. I don't, Mr. President. My duty is to obey orders. Soldiers don't need to speculate on any factors other than their mission. Is that really how you feel, Hans? A soldier is not only a member of the army, but also a member of humanity. Young soldiers tend to forget the former due to the latter. Only after refining themselves over a lengthy military career will they steal their judgment. So you have tasked me with this mission because I have the necessary experience and you trust my judgment. Not only that, judgment entails responsibility. When passing judgment, you must bear the full weight of its consequences. Night is too heavy for the dawn of a new era. I don't doubt their fearlessness in the fight against the corrupted, but they have yet to awaken to a higher calling. Yes, I understand. The responsibility of our generation should not fall on the next generation. The atrocities committed by our generation should not be repaid by future generations. Hans, I know the cruelty I ask of you, but the blood of the youth has not been cooled over many long years. Such is the same for their passion. I don't want them to lose this passion so early. So I must play the judge, and you the executioner. As you wish, Mr. President. When I accepted my appointment, I was ready for the worst. The current situation is within my expectations. Moreover, I didn't think I would have a chance to return to the surface ever again. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Such gratitude is unnecessary. Humanity may have emotions, but the universe does not. Babylonia is the scale that balances the past and future of humanity. The fulcrum between the two is a steel wire hanging over the abyss. We are the people who walk the steel wire. Hans, I'm sure you know what to do. I know what to do. Is it almost time? Yes, Chief Commander. Almost ready. Do you want to authenticate and activate the bit domain nodes now? Wait. Chief Commander? I asked the other two teams to verify that their domain nodes are functioning properly. After the second verification, I can safely activate the nodes and request Babylonia to launch the attack. Roger. After walking for who knows how long, you have lost all feeling in your legs. At first, you could still maintain contact with Lee, but after crossing a certain node, even your comms are now completely off. The desolate desert outstretches in a monotonous and dreary expanse toward the horizon. The whale song begins again, causing the red tide to continue expanding. Your consciousness floats along with the serene melody. What else have we discussed? Let me see. Oh, right. Have you heard what whales sound like? I don't know why she's crazy about them. Isla, do you think there are still whales on Earth? I only read about them in books. Apparently they are the largest mammal on Earth. How big of a pool would you need to accommodate such a beautiful creation? What do you think? Miss Betty, how big of a pool would you need? I think it would need an ocean. That's what I said. A creature that big would only fit in the ocean. The ocean? You mean the blue stuff on the model? Yep, exactly. Water on Earth is blue. Why is the water in Babylonia colorless? What turned it into such a beautiful color on the surface? Why is the water in Babylonia colorless? What turned it into such a beautiful color on the surface? Isla calmly repeats the question posed by her unnamed friend. In an instant, you feel transported across time and space as you talk to the veiled girl in the depths of time. Because there is enough water. It absorbs low-frequency light. It reflects high-frequency light. That's why it is blue. That's quite a rational answer. If she heard it, I'm sure she would be disappointed. Luckily, that's not what I said. I don't know why. That's not important. Alright, enough about that. Back to whales. If that's the case, whales are the bars of the ocean. Their voices must be far-reaching and long-lasting since the ocean is so vast. Must be lonely not getting a response. You notice something waving in front of your eyes. Zone out again? Wansha brings his hand back. Sorry. You were out for quite some time. I was just thinking about something that happened a long time ago. You hear the whale song again. This intricate web of tributaries spreads like slime mold, the source of which is unknown. Wansha. What do you think of this sound? You think it sounds like a whale song, but the refugees call it the siren song. Siren song? Or siren's call. Documents left over from the Golden Age say that sirens were monsters that lived in the ocean who lured sailors with songs. Sailors would become entranced by their songs and crash their ships into the reefs. It's not difficult to understand why it's garnered such a negative reputation. After all, the sound and red tide coincide with death. But it is. It's bound to the red tide, so we can always rely on the sound to predict the rise and fall of the red tide. Ironically, it isn't so much an alluring sound that puts people into trance, but rather it seems to be a reminder of the approaching red tide. Think we could follow the sound to the source? Doesn't seem like a problem. But, got any ideas? I just have a hunch. Maybe it's a cry for help. The siren's call is actually a cry for help. You and I remember calmly. Sure would get along, huh? Speaking of which, the spectrogram of this voice. Forget it. It's nothing. Going upstream, you follow the sound for quite some time. The web of tributaries becomes more densely woven. The yellow sand has now turned black and gray. Hetero creatures on the shore of the red tide are writhing through the sand, stone, and soil. The rustling sound is like the footsteps of death. Wanshi's lethargy was now in full restraint, leaving only seriousness and solemnity. What? Solemnity? I can't pronounce that. The sound is getting closer and closer. No longer dragging out his words, his speech has become rapid and precise as if worried about some unknown entity. Are you receiving any alerts from your protective equipment? What about you? My Enver device was enhanced by the support force. I should be fine for now. Now we can rely on the sound to judge the rise and fall of the red tide to avoid it. If we proceed any further, we may have no other choice but to get up close and personal with those things. Punishing concentration is one thing, but those hetero creatures are another thing entirely. Are you sure you want to continue? We've already made it this far. Good point. You hear the sound again. A whale must be lonely if it doesn't get a response. This was the only thing going through her mind. Hard to imagine, huh? You think whales get lonely? Huh? Why are you thinking about that too? I didn't think the Great Raven Commandant was so romantic. I asked her the same thing. Do you think whales get lonely? I think they get really lonely. Then she sang me a song. She has always been like this. Once she has inspiration, she will practice it immediately. I saved the recording. Want to hear it? Isla activates the terminal. You hear someone singing an Adagio Aria. This is the most beautiful sound you have ever heard. The tone ebbs and flows as it rises higher. Suddenly a vast ocean seems to appear before your very eyes. The female voice does not fully imitate the sound of a real whale, but conveys the same expression in the melody. A lonely blue whale is swinging its tail fin and cruising in the sea. It sings again and again. The song echoes throughout the ocean depths, but there is no response. The singing stopped, but the song had no ending, because the lonely whale never found its herd. Sounds like the song isn't finished. You're right. She said that she hadn't thought of an ending yet, because she hasn't seen the ocean with her own eyes. She'll write the second half of the song when she sees the real ocean. That's what she said, at least. It's Benny. Someone pats your shoulder forcefully. You return to your senses and look around. Only then do you realize that you have entered a hostile area. You just started sprinting for some reason. I thought you were going to jump into the red tide. What the hell is... The sound interrupts Wanshi. Unlike before, you hear the sound nearby. Both of you turn to look toward the sound. Where is this? You hear a thunderous buzzing in the air, but the whirlwind of sand suddenly stops. Under the gray clouds, the sanguine red tide merges into a lake. Here the tide is tranquil, reflecting like a giant mirror. Or more accurately, it's like the calm before the storm. I didn't think we'd actually find it. Wanshi mutters to himself. In the middle of the red tide stands a humanoid monster resembling a skeleton. Several steel forks of condensed punishing virus nail it to the center of the lake. If it were not for this hellscape, it would seem as if it was the crucified Son of God. Oh shit. The visualization goes crazy. What's that? The question seems to rouse the monster in the middle of the red tide. It struggles to raise its head and unleashes a dense but serene song. This was the siren's call that he had been hearing. Then, It suddenly turns its head and looks this way. The tranquil red tide seems to suddenly take on life as it gradually inundates the surrounding land. Oh god, we're gonna fight Siren. Oh no. God, this boss. Punishing virus is forming its body. Is that a new hero creature? The red tide is rising. The inverted device won't last too long. We better finish this off quick. Dude. Oh god, no, please. Oh no. God, I remember fighting. Yeah, I remember now. Like, when Echo Aria came out, they had the boss challenge and shit, and I was trying to clear all stages of it. Dude, this thing messed me up so many times. I was also playing Selena during that time too. Okay, well. God. Oh, my dodge gauge, man. He does so many. Siren does so many attacks, I can't dodge them all. Ugh, dude. Got it. Oh. Oh. Oh shit. I don't remember this though. Oh god, it's rising. Oh, right. It gets a freaking second phase. Jesus Christ. It has a sword this time. Oh god, what the fuck was that boss from Dark Souls 3? Like Prince, what is it? Prince Lothric? Prince Lorien or whatever the fuck? It's that dude. He's just missing someone on his back. He really doesn't remind me of the boss. Jesus Christ. No plan to end it here. Dude. Wow, yeah, he really reminds me of that Dark Souls 3 boss. Holy shit. Just the way it's moving reminds me of it. Oh my god. Dude. God. Get myself here. Just a little more. Time to say goodbye. There you go, Wanshi. Kick him. Get him. Nice. It's a cool boss, but man, I always get messed up because of its attack patterns. Holy. Fall. Burn. Crash. Rip. Merge. My body. Does it still exist? That I do not know. I feel as if I am just a tapestry, torn into individual strands. Strands ripped out and tied to the strands of others. Soft cotton. Coarse linen. Sharp glass. Sturdy, cold barbed wire. These barbs and blades. Sharp like scalpels. I have wept and cried out in agony. Yet nothing has freed me from this eternal despair. I can only weave this pain into the fibers of my being. Echoes of desperation. Incessant thoughts. Deep love. Whether it's love, regret, anger, fear, or hatred. The myriad of beings. All are woven into my fibers. Someone, anyone, deliver me from it all. Anyone, please, please hurry. Kill me. Wow. Yeah, that Dark Souls, yeah, that siren, I'm just reminded of Dark Souls and that entire like little dialogue at the end there. Very, very Dark Souls vibey. That was good. A part of me almost wanted to read that in like a British accent, like in Dark Souls. That was good. Oh, there's still, wow. There's 3 more notes to go through. Siren. Selena. Ugh. Ugh. Caught off guard, the white strike hawk is lifted by the ominous black monster. Right then, his last bullet hits the monster's chest that is emitting faint blue light. Only the crisp cracking can be heard as the hetero creature's chest splinters. Pieces of black hetero polymers slide down like shards of glass. Buried within the hetero creature, a broken figure emerges from within. It was a strange yet familiar figure. Where had you seen her before? At this time, Wanshi's previously languid eyes open wide as he stares at the hetero creature in the middle of the lake. It was her, all along. The construct that went missing from the space station. This is what the Ascendants did to her. What a disgrace. She's the construct that went missing? I came across her file while looking through the scout team's database, so I took note of it. I didn't expect that the next time I would see her would be here of all places. My mission as a scout is to gather, integrate, and report intel. Prior to the last battle against the Ascendants, each member of the scout team knew all of the intel on them by heart. We all know that an Ascendant by the name of Gabriel took a construct from Babylonia. But as for what purpose or necessity this served, that has always remained a mystery. Now the mystery is solved. There's a heterocore fragment here. Suffering a heavy blow, the hetero creature remains kneeling by the shore of the red tide as Punishy Virus gathers in the air about to repair its body. Is it all over? A monster like this won't go down without a fight. I'll buy you some time. Get out of here. Wait, what are you doing? What are you planning on doing with the domain node? Authorization complete. Node activated. Looking around, you barely make it to high ground and avoid being corrupted by the punishing virus. Aside from where you stand, the red tide inundates the surrounding area, and ravenous hetero creatures occupy the area up ahead. You cannot find any secure place to deploy the node up until Babylonia receives the signal. Give it to me. Hurry back. I dragged you into this mess. If you can't even make it back. Not like I can get very far without you. My bad. Not to mention all the hetero creatures. You are as good as dead without the protection of a construct. God damn it. Why'd I have to go kick the hornet's nest after arriving on the surface? You aren't much better, though. Always throwing your life away for complete strangers. The hetero creature in the middle of the lake seems to realize the crisis at hand. As it roars and struggles, the monster drakes his body toward you in preparation for another attack. There's no time to avoid it. Faced with potential danger, your body rushes with adrenaline. The faces of the people you have met along the way flash before your eyes. All the questions that could not be answered at first were answered at this moment. For example, what do you think of that blue planet? The equatorial radius is 6,378.137 kilometers. It rotates from west to east and revolves around the sun. It is the third innermost planet of the solar system. We have nothing left. Our only driving force left is our attachment to this land. It's the only thing that supports our menial existence. Our last wish is to forever rest within its embrace. Standing here, we can look back on the glory of the past and see the tombstones of our old friends. We were born here. We will die here. Humanity is bound to its homeland by the gravitational force known as love. Why had those on the surface not come to Babylonia? What sort of life would they have had on the surface? What would people on the surface think of us? Enough with the hypocrisy. Is this really in our best interest? Or do you just not want to see us die before your very eyes? Look at you. Your conscience is just as repulsive as your actions. Removing us from our homeland will make you sleep better at night, but it won't make our lives any better. Don't you think it's ridiculous to tell us that we're also citizens of the world government? Don't you remember how you treated us when the evacuation started? You held us at gunpoint to prevent us from boarding Eden. You left us behind like junk. Now you dare to come back and rescue us? Are you kidding me? Get out. Get out of here. I don't need your fake compassion now. Because I see weakness and timidity in your eyes. When all of this is over, you'll probably blame your incompetence and live with a heavy sense of guilt. So I want to tell you, don't. Don't feel any guilt. We've chosen our own path. You have completed your mission. All right, that's enough. One day, we will reunite with our comrades on the surface. When that time comes, we will share in the marvelous things we have seen and rejoice in song. Nothing is more romantic, is it not? Yeah, nothing is more romantic. A voice from the bottom of your heart crosses time and space to answer the unknown girl's question. So, before we share all the marvelous things we have seen and rejoice in song, it would be disgraceful to end with such hatred and tragedy. So, you must at least protect the node until the very end. Embrace this idea and hold the long black needle tightly in your arms. Close eyes. You just hear the sound of a frame being crushed. Opening your eyes, you see one shield protecting you. The hetero creature pierces his right arm, causing a fountain of vital fluids to spew from the wound. Don't worry, constructs aren't that weak. If you're injured, your team and my captain will hold me accountable. Enough of that for now. A strong sense of fear and helplessness causes your legs to go weak. As if in a daze, you catch a glimpse of a broken heart like that of the broken figure buried within the monster's chest. Her eyes are as empty as when you first saw her. Her exposed chest shines with uncharacteristic brightness as faint blue light shimmers beneath it. The hetero creature's chest is within reach. The girl's remains, which you could only catch a glimpse of before, are now in full view. The moment you see her face, your mind becomes clouded with confusion. Could she still be alive like this? Is she dreaming? Why else would she show such a look of pain? Wansha is still struggling in front of you. Now is not the time with such nonsense, but your train of thought begins to spiral out of control. You and the 3 other Grey Ravens are at a standstill in the center of the airtight space station. Excuse me, is that Grey Raven down there? Who are you? Wait, is that Miss Isla? Yes, I'm Isla, a member of the 2nd Archaeological Team. Why is she here? Liv? Lee? Do you know her? She's a very popular young artist in Babylonia. Murray likes to go to her exhibitions. I like Miss Isla's work too. I've been wanting to meet you too. Especially, I should probably talk about that later. I've got more important things to tell you. My mission here is to rescue a construct named... She means a lot to me. The task force have all heard about the heroic deeds of the Great Ravens at the Ascendant's base. I've even heard about them in Babylonia. If you've been in direct contact with the Ascendants, have you seen the Ascendant who attacked me on the space station? Never mind, he's not important. The only thing I care about is whether you found any sign of her in their base. Who do you mean by her? You've met her before on the space station. She's my best friend. Her name is... The hetero creature's blade is still stuck on Wansha's shoulder. Wansha holds it down firmly, giving the monster no chance to retract it. But at that moment, you react before you have time to process it. Rush forward holding the domain node. You manage to finally collect your scattered fragments of your memory. You met her on the space station. She's my best friend. Her name is... Selena. The voice of Isla. Oh god, I just got goosebumps when the music came in. Jesus. I just got like a chill up my spine. Oh, chills. The voice of Isla in your memory suddenly synchronizes with yours. Blurting out the name causes the hetero creature to stop in its tracks. It unleashes a sad and forlorn cry. The girl in the center of its chest moves faintly. Her lifeless eyes return focus. At the same time, the punishing virus seems to repair the hetero creature at a diminishing rate. It is at that moment you understand that the solemn whale song and steel thorns that bind her were the last struggles of the girl within the hetero creature. Her voice module was already completely destroyed. Whenever she moves her lips, she is unable to produce any sound. So, she struggles to stretch out her disfigured hand from within the hetero creature. However, there are no need for words. The moment your eyes meet, you sense each other's true intention. All that is left for each of you to complete the final mission. Grey Raven, come in. Grey Raven, do you copy? We've got ourselves a situation here. Sounds like Mr. Strikehawk has finally stopped acting all indolent. It's all the panic. Your Commandant. Commandant? What's wrong with the Commandant? Relax. Your Commandant is fine. The protective device is critical though. Still, we have enough serum. Sorry, I got a little out of hand. We don't have time to get into this right now. Commander Hans just activated the last bit domain node. Babylonia is approaching an orbit to begin the attack. Tell me you are evacuating with our Commandant. Don't worry, we just escaped from the Lion's Den. Lion's Den? Did you run into trouble? Wanshi remains silent for a moment, then continues. I'm not sure. I think it was the source of the red tide. What makes you think that? The abnormally high punishing concentration it had, the strong desire for self-preservation, and the behavior of the surrounding hetero creature. It was like a hive similar to that on Earth. It's difficult to describe with words. I'll transmit my readings and statics to you now. Data received. Is this a hetero creature? And he looks at the hetero creature in the image and frowns. That's exactly what you said. Are you still collecting combat data? I'm a sniper. A sniper is the person responsible for observing the battlefield and collecting data. So, what did you do? Don't tell me you found the source and just ran away. It wasn't me. It was your commandant. Your commandant stabbed the bit domain node into it right at the last second. Commandant did that? Babylonia has established the coordinate system and is heading over us to prepare for the orbital strike. And now that the 4th bit domain node has been activated, there's still hope for redemption. If you catch my drift. He nods solemnly. Understood. What's the situation with you and the commandant? Well, for me, there are problems everywhere, but my mind is still stable and corruption is below the threshold. I just need to take a load off. Now's not the time for that. Keep that in mind. Sheesh, I was just joking. I'm not laughing. Once you bring the commandant back safely, then you can crack jokes. Got it. Are you still able to escort the commandant? I'm more than capable of protecting a human. Understood. I'll prepare the camp. Prepare your frame when you get back. Also, thank you for protecting a commandant. You should thank your commandant for the data you're looking at right now. Your commandant risks death in order to acquire data that's satisfactory for both sides. If the chief commander can be persuaded to inform Babylonia to launch a precision strike, all of the problems will be solved. This is your mission. Don't let your commandant's efforts go to waste. Understood. Liv, it's urgent. I need you to run calculations and generate a model. Gonna take a drink of water. To Commander Hans. What is it this time, Grey Ravens? Babylonia is about to reach us in orbit. We'll receive orders to retreat in less than half an hour. We just received news that our commandant is returning to camp. I don't care about any news regarding that fugitive. Tell your commandant not to do anything stupid. News when he still has time to make it back through the flank and evacuate in time. Our commandant knows what to do, which is why we are here again. The commandant encountered a massive hetero creature during the operation. The Strikehawk construct collected a large amount of relevant data during the battle. Based on the data, Liv from our team modeled the evolution of the red tide. Go on. Reactivates the terminal and projects the hologram for Hans to see. This is a gradient map of the punishing virus compiled by the Strikehawk while exploring the source of the red tide. As you can see, the punishing concentration of the red tide increases along with depth. This area is at its peak. Lee points to the last picture sent by Wanshi. It is a lake composed of sanguine red tide located in the center of the hologram. To the image of the ominous black hetero creature. After just a glance, Hans nods. I see. Turn it off. Lee nods and replaces the hologram with the original data model. Also, this is a flow map of the red tide. The core cluster is situated in the center of the flow map. Here, the red tide increases flow outward and spreads just like a heart pumping blood throughout the entire body. Finally, this is a statistical model on the behavior pattern of hetero creature in the core region. We've established that the red tide spreads when the hetero creature makes that noise. Get to the point. The red tide has a source, and this hetero creature is the culprit for spreading the red tide. By eliminating it, we can finally put an end to the red tide and solve all of our problems. The Commandant took the most logical course of action by jamming the last bit domain node into the hetero creature. Babylonia will be overhead soon. I'll apply for a revision to the attack plan, thereby focusing the Longinus arsenal on the bit domain deployed by the Commandant. What makes you think this will put a stop to the red tide? Lee suddenly lowers his voice. I'm not sure. But Chief Commander, you have higher authority. You should be aware of the CTO's speculations regarding the red tide's origin. It's a vestige of the Hetero Core. According to the records of our operations against the Hetero Core on the space station, it's impossible to destroy such an entity with a wide-scale strike. What I present to you is only objective facts and data. Wide-scale strike was never an insurance plan to start with. Combining various factors such as atmospheric thickness, scattering rate, Babylonia's firepower, and punishing virus activity, the Longinus arsenal may look impressive, but we can't ensure that it will be a success. The blast will be dispersed over too great of an area, thereby reducing the strength of the laser's power. But if we launch a precision strike, it's like stabbing a needle directly into the enemy's heart to stop it from beating. After that, all we have to do is deal with the body. As you said before, Chief Commander Hans, now is not the time to hesitate. Time is of the essence. Please make a decision, Chief Commander Hans. Hans turns his head. Connect me to Babylonia. Contact HQ and transfer me to President Hassan. Transfer complete, Commander Hans. How's it going on the ground, Hans? Change in plans. The Grey Raven Commandant broke protocol and discovered a large hetero creature similar to the one we encountered in the ruins of 75. The data we received from the Commandant indicates that the nature of the creature is similar to that of a polyphage. Judging from the flowing, punishing energy, this hetero creature is likely to be the source of the red tide. The Grey Raven Commandant planted the last bit domain node into the hetero creature and applied to change for a wide-scale attack to a precision strike to focus all of our attack power on the hetero creature, thereby ensuring the elimination of the red tide. Before Hassan can respond, a voice interrupts him. Hans, you have overstepped authority as Chief Commander. Babylonia is in charge of formulating a battle plan, not you. Once a plan has been finalized, you are only responsible for executing it. Understood, Commander. The Science Council has concluded that a wide-scale attack is our best option. We can't guarantee that it will completely eliminate the red tide, but that's the safest strategy. Mr. President, the Science Council didn't have our current data when formulating this plan. I think it's time to make a reasonable contingency plan based on the new data. The battlefield is unpredictable. I'm just making the best judgment based on our current situation. You don't have any ulterior motives? Transmit the data. I'll have Asimov analyze it now. Put me through the Asimov. Transfer complete, Mr. President. Asimov, this is data sent by troops on the front line. What do you think? Asimov appears on the comm link, half asleep. After squinting at the data for some time, he suddenly perks up. Interesting. Very interesting. Looks like the 4th bit domain node is key to all of this. You think so? The troops on the front line have requested to switch from a wide-scale attack to a precision strike on the 4th bit domain node. On a case-by-case basis, their judgment is reasonable based on the model they transmitted back. I first speculated that the hetero core fragment in the polyphage was the origin of the red tide. I just couldn't understand why the red tide continued to spread after the polyphage disappeared. Turns out I found a new source of power. This data sure is interesting. Asimov, it's not the time to indulge in research. Pardon me, Mr. President. Is it feasible to change the plan on such short notice? Objectively speaking, little is known about the red tide. Whether we launch a wide-scale area attack or a precision strike is a gamble either way. We just came to the conclusion that a wide-scale attack was our safest course of action. A gamble, you say? Understood. Think it over. One wrong step will lead straight into the abyss. Not for you, but the whole world. Since it's a gamble either way, I don't mind choosing the more humane option. Put me through the Chief Commander Hans. Hans. Yes, Mr. President. Request granted. When Babylonian presses overhead, we will launch a precision strike with Longinus Arsenal on the bit domain node deployed by the Ravens once we have finished calibrating the coordinates. I'll relay the orders to all of the constructs under my command immediately. I'm not finished, Hans. After the first attack, we will wait for 20 minutes to observe the effect. If it is ineffective in stemming the red tide, we will launch a second attack. However, this time we will wipe out the area indiscriminately with a wide-scale attack. 2 consecutive attacks will consume 90% of Babylonia's energy supply, compromising Babylonia's anti-air defenses. What this means, I think it's worth it. As you said before, the people on the surface are our comrades. You not only need to relay the updated battle plan, but also issue a retreat. Lead your calibration team to safety. Understood. Whew. Requiem. Every time she gazes at the blue planet, she has an inexplicable feeling in her heart. The blue planet, known as Earth, is said to be the cradle of mankind. But in reality, she never regarded the planet as her home. After all, she has been living among the clouds and stars since her birth. Her parents, who were once residents of Earth, never shied away from sharing stories with her about the former glories of mankind. They said that it was an era of human ignorance. It was an era of human courage. It was an era when mankind was full of longing for all the beauty of the universe. She could not understand the true meaning of these words, but she could feel the sincerity hidden deep within their hearts. Pride, sentiment, and lingering pain, like a somber needle stabbing at her heart. So she inevitably began to yearn for the blue planet. All who lay eyes on the blue planet cannot help becoming enchanted by its beauty. Even while quietly viewing from afar through the observation filter in Babylonia, the softest nerve in your heart will be affected by it. The storms described in stories do not exist in Babylonia, only on the planet, only on the blue planet. Rainbows described in stories do not exist in Babylonia, only on the blue planet. Why did humanity wish to free themselves from the shackles of gravity so urgently? She had such doubts. Flowers are a rare sight in Babylonia. Precious resources are not allowed to be wasted on flora solely for the purpose of viewing. Such fantastical things can only exist in photo albums and stories. If possible, she wants to see a sunrise with her own eyes. She wants to see stars spread across the night sky with her own eyes. She wants to see rainfall form a river with her own eyes. She wants to see snowflakes cover the ground in a blanket of white with her own eyes. The changing of seasons, the waxing and waning of the moon, the thunder in spring and the rustling pines in winter. Fields of various grains, grassy hillsides where sheep frolic. Verdant fields waving in the wind, banks where golden flowers grow. Flocks of goldfinches, lush vineyards, barren seashores. If what is portrayed in stories really exists, she really, really wanted to see it with her own eyes. How long has it been? She could not remember. What seemed like only a brief moment also felt like an eternity. Selena. The pain that keeps pressing her heart suddenly stops upon hearing this name called out. The moment she opens her eyes, she recalls what all had happened. The original promise was now a nightmare. What she wants to protect has become the source of sin. At first, she only wanted to inherit the legacy of her companions. But why has she ended up here? She knows within her heart what to do now. Embracing the black needle left by the familiar yet strange human, She thrusts it into her power source. Let everything end here. Looking up, she seems to catch a glimpse of skylight. At that moment, all of her misery fades away. Is this what looking up at the sky from the surface of Earth feels like? It's so beautiful that people forget fear, pain, and hatred. Bathed in the brilliance, she feels like everything is gradually evaporating away. Before everything disappears, a poem left by the Golden Age suddenly appears in her chaotic and collapsing mind. To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. Her remains lay quietly on the dry, scorched earth. The remains of the scattered red tide squirm toward her like maggots. Part of the red tide once again attaches to her remains, absorbing her strength in preparation to condense her remains into the monster from before. One foot steps onto the red tide. The deadly red tide ripples like a puddle beneath her foot. She stops, lowers her eyes, and looks down at the broken remains, as if observing a small flower poking out from within a crack in the rock. If the light words are scattered by the wind. As if she had received some response, she leans down and extends her hand toward the blue light on the chest of the remains. The disfigured body trembles violently. The hetero creature bound to Selena seems to receive instructions. Standing in a savage posture of growing ferocity, it suddenly turns into a surging red liquid, plentiful and flowing, gradually fading from Selena's body. She raises her finger as if to brush aside the messy hair around the ears of the reborn girl. However, she does not touch her, even up until she finally retracts her hand. The heterocore fragment turns to powder in her hands. She leaves without looking back. Cradle of Immortality. The sun probes from the eastern horizon. The morning glow pierces the darkness and fades to black upon reaching this far. An invisible boundary divides the sky. The distant east shines with the first rays of morning, warm and bright. Yet the sky above remains cloaked in darkness, cold and deep. This is a race towards the rising sun. Under the guidance of the Strike Hawk, you flee the deep and distant darkness as you set out for the bright and warm horizon. In the blue sky, there suddenly appears a beam of light more dazzling than the sun, like a meteor plummeting at your back. Before you can turn your head, you hear one shout, "Don't look back. Keep going. Don't look back." Cross that boundary and do not look back. Whether that be the hetero creature or the broken figure within, leave them both behind. It seems that as long as you do not think about it, the heavy sense of guilt will not overwhelm you. On the way back, the desert is still and lifeless. Without the whale song, the red tide is now a stagnant pool. Knowing everything that went into this, your pace becomes increasingly burdensome. Among the haze, you see 3 familiar figures standing on a familiar hill in the distance. Before you can speak, Lucia rushes forward and hugs you tightly. Commandant. Commandant. You feel her trembling. Don't ever do that again. No matter what. Don't ever go at it alone. Surviving this ordeal should have filled you with joy. But now there is only grief. Looking around, you see Lee and Liv standing solemnly to the side. Only Lucia is here holding you tightly. When choosing to act alone, you never seem to consider their feelings. You feel as if they should be capable of understanding your intentions. At this moment, you deeply understand one thing. You should not risk your life as long as they are around. I'm sorry. Commandant, you really need to reflect on how you left without saying goodbye. The look on Liv's face remains serious, briefly before softening. You need to cherish yourself. Lee looks at you over steadily. Without saying a word, he seems to understand everything. He pats you on the shoulder. Tired? Let's get some rest. We'll talk about the report later. I've compiled a report on the specific matters of the Grey Raven's violations during this operation. I'll submit it to Babylonia when the time comes. Regardless of the final outcome, it's an established fact that we acted without regard to the instructions of HQ. Looks like this time we'll be tied up in military court for a while. Got it. Are you not concerned in the slightest? Is it because you've got a big heart? Or are you really that fearless? Forget it. Now's not the time. All that matters is you made it back safe and sound. There's one more thing, regardless of regarding the refugees. He pauses in thought before continuing slowly. Most of them have still chosen to stay. However, some have decided to leave. Considering that there aren't that many people, the temporary facilities will suffice, even if the conservation area on the surface is incomplete. Babylonia will soon dispatch a transport craft to relocate them. What about the others? Honestly, this environment has already become inhospitable for humans. Even though the red tide has stopped spreading, the remaining punishing virus has blocked their access to nearby cities. They won't be able to hold out much longer here. But if they choose to stay, all we can do is respect their decision. So, all of this was for nothing. If consequentialism is the deciding factor, then most of the actions of the world are meaningless. Not everything can be judged based solely on the number of survivors written in the report. He's right. I don't think what you did was meaningless at all. Commandant, you stood up for their hopes and dreams. The fact that you fought until the last minute is precisely why both sides were able to come to a mutual understanding. Mutual understanding. Closing your eyes, your mind fills with the image of the broken figure's almost carefree smile after taking over the bit domain node. With your thoughts still in disarray, you're unable to conjure up a response to the three people before you. You cannot help but look to the scout who, like yourself, knows what really happened. After undergoing emergency maintenance, Wanshi is now quietly lying on a haystack with his eyes closed as he basks in a sunbeam. He appears to be fast asleep. For a moment, you do not know whether to think about if constructs actually need sleep or to call them over. After some consideration, you decide not to rush over and awaken him. Having crossed such rugged terrain, a short respite is warranted. Regardless of the struggles on Earth, nothing will affect the eternal migration of stars. This planet has always been like this, equally cruel, equally compassionate. It seldom rains in the desert, but when it does, the sky is as clear and transparent as a mirror. The moist dust cannot be lifted by the roaring wind yet. At this moment, everyone stops to appreciate the beauty of the stillness. Hans, dressed in his starched and pressed military uniform, stands quietly outside the camp. The surrounding scenery is embraced by brilliant, transparent silence. Now standing here, he can finally overlook the distant, sparkling coastline. He hears a rustling of footsteps from behind. Hans does not look back. The old man walks up to Hans, gazes off into the distance with them. Why didn't you retreat? Hans closes his eyes. It's been a long time since I've seen a sunrise. After a few moments, Hans realizes that he has not been on the surface in nearly 10 years. Like a soul without a home, exiled by the atmosphere and gravity, drifting in low Earth orbit. Now the children of Babylonia have forgotten about the Golden Age. They forgot where they came from and how their culture was born. They opened their eyes among the stars. For them, Earth is no different from the moon. We tell them that Earth is our home, but we can't tell them why. Soon everything will become a fragment of history. If I had to choose, I wouldn't leave. But as a soldier, he had no choice. Those who survive must continue the dreams of the dead. Only the living can see tomorrow. Only the living can exact revenge. Only the living can have hope. No matter how painful, no matter how unwilling, even if he has to destroy what he truly wants, he must leave. Should we not feel guilty? I think not. This burden of guilt nearly crushes him beneath its weight. But it will also become a chair that binds him to the battlefield, forcing him to continue facing all hell before him. Until he dies, he will fight. Fight his way. No matter how disgraceful and despised by others, he will fight until his heart stops and shatters in pieces. Only he himself knows that he is not the unyielding pine others saw him as. Rather, he is just a tombstone that refuses to topple. Should he crumble, the glory of the Golden Age engraved on him will become dust in the long river of time, never to return. The man in his starched and pressed uniform leaves. Now only the old man remains standing, gazing off into the distant sea. At this age, can you still feel sorrow? In a trance, he seems to hear the sound of waves. Must be his imagination. From this distance, even the ocean breeze would be unable to carry this sound this far. This is only a residual sound from his memory. He slowly takes a seat on the ground. In the blue sky, several black spots suddenly appear. Those must be the transport craft sent by Babylonia to pick them up. The old man glances back at the camp. Some people had come out of their homes, mostly young children. The lost boy is leaning against his grandmother and waving at the old man. The old man turns to wave back. Grow up big and strong, he says almost inaudibly. Life is full of all kinds of farewells. People he had come to know left his world one by one. Regardless of those he loved and hated, they are already gone. This was just another farewell. He cannot leave this land. Many others cannot leave either. Some people will be bound to their hometown all their lives. Those who are about to leave, and those who choose to stay, say goodbye to each other, but there is no sadness on their faces. Because watching young birds leave the nest is not something to grieve over. She had a very long nightmare. Her body was torn apart, broken down, and then put together again. Supporting such a fragmented body, she lingered in the endless darkness until she forgot what she even looked like. In the haze, someone persuaded her to give up. If she were to give up, she would no longer continue to suffer. If she were to give up, she would not have to continue to face hell. Was anything left unfinished? She could not remember. It was as if she had already faded from existence. No, that cannot be. Don't strain your mind with trying to work this strange business out. At a convenient moment, which will be soon, I'll explain everything and all these strange occurrences will become clear. A name passed through her mind. Although she could not recall the exact name, she missed it from the bottom of her heart. Then a beam of light pierced the internal night. The darkness was like a curtain, tearing from where the light shined, and slowly opening from both sides. Suddenly, her senses return. She slowly props up her upper body from the barren ground. She lifts her head and opens her eyes. The sun hangs in the vast blue sky. It is no longer the fiery ball of light in space that incinerates everything. The atmosphere blesses it, makes it bless all life on Earth equally. It is so gentle that people forget all their sadness. Here she sees sunlight for the first time, breathes her first gust of wind, and steps out onto Earth for the first time. Who is she? Why is she here? Nothing matters anymore. She only wants to tell you all the miracles she saw along the journey. She's alive. And that's the first half of it. Holy, took almost 4 hours to get through. Jesus Christ. It was long, yeah. It was a long one, but it was really good. Really good. It started to get really good at 9 here. I think 9 was like the very peak of it all. When you start fighting Siren, and then Selena gets more involved with it. Like these 4 here, these 4 notes have been really great. It's been really great. Yeah, that was really good. It started building up from like 7 here, but from 9 all the way to 12, really good stuff. Really good stuff. I've gone through her interlude before, which is like a lot of other stories in the game I've done. I don't remember too much of it. It's been almost 4 hours. My voice is actually not feeling too terrible, but I don't know how long this will be for. This entire part here, this entire interlude might even take like another like hour, maybe even 2. I don't think I want to go through that. I don't think I want to go through extra like reading or talking for today. So I guess change of plans. I'll just go through the first half of Echo Aria, and then the second half of Echo Aria tomorrow. And depending on how long the second half of Echo Aria is, Hidden isn't super long. 8 nodes. Okay. I don't know about doing the Hidden afterwards. Oops. I feel like it would be better just to do Interlude right now, and then tomorrow will be all Wanshi focused. I'm really not sure. Because again, I don't know if my voice can handle it. I wonder if there's something online that tells me like how long it would typically take. Peter, Selena. Does anyone say? Is there anyone that says how long it takes? Oh, apparently she has a hidden story interlude. Like there's like a hidden part of it. Oh, that's interesting. Or am I? Or maybe I've already. Man, I have no idea. Let me see here. Hang on. Let me see. Oh, interesting. Oh wow, there's a hidden story in her interlude. There's a hidden section. Wow. Oh god, that makes me wonder if if the previous ones I've done had anything secret. See, now it makes me wonder if Lucia's has something secret. Because I know Alpha's had a secret one. This one right here. Oh no. Now I have to double check. Fuck. I think I'm gonna end it off here. It's a lot of reading to go through. I might actually end up, yeah, I might actually end up going through all of Echo Aria, the hidden and the normal and hidden, and then I'll do their reread through their interludes as well. Which means chapter 14 is gonna be on hold for a long while, or until like next week. And I say next week because, you know, there's other games I want to play. Or, well, I mean, I'm still playing Divinity, so there's still that for me to go through. But yeah, that was the first half of Echo Aria. Here, let me add part 1 to this title of the stream. Aria part 1. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah. I'll save the second half of it tomorrow then. I want to give my voice some rest. Ugh. My throat. Okay. So, with that being said, that is going to be it for me for tonight. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining with me. I really do appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night, wherever you are in the world. Take care, stay safe, drink plenty of water, and I hope you enjoyed the stream. Tomorrow I'll finish off the second half of Echo Aria. Probably around the same time as this stream, as I did with this stream. So, okay. Again, thank you for watching, and again, I hope you enjoyed the stream. Thank you. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.